A cataclysm called the Eternal Storm grows every day, threatening the very existence of humanity. The last hope of mankind is the legendary weapon of abilities, of incredible destructive power. In the sunny forest, a young man races at random, having lost track of his rival. He calls himself Lodi and explains that he is currently undergoing daily combat training. His rival is a childhood friend and brother-in-law named Squat. Lodi's face darkens, filled with determination to finally break their eternal tie. Suddenly, he notices a bright glow through the trees. Lodi's eyes widen. He finds his opponent. Shouting that he has found him, Lodi swings his sword with all his might. An exclamation mark appears above his head, a moment of sudden realization. He realizes that he hit the scarecrow. It was bait. Turns sharply, preparing to attack from inside the blind spot. A wooden projectile whistles through the air, flying straight into your head. Tense, he strikes back at the wooden knife with his practice sword. The thrown weapon crashes into the tree trunk with a thud. The opponent carelessly notes that Lodi managed to block a dangerous attack. Finally, he shows himself. It's Squat joking about Lodi's growth. Lodi knows that Squat's main strength is his ability to read people's movements. Despite this, he roars his friend's name and charges forward, vowing to win today. The world around him blurs as he charges at a stationary opponent. Squat meets his determined onslaught with a calm, knowing smile. An arrow whistles past Lodi's head, making him wonder why he doesn't run away. Lodi exclaims in surprise, instinctively parrying the unexpected shot. The deflected arrow sticks forcefully into the ground next to him. She dissolves in a cloud of magical energy, revealing her true nature. After regaining his stance, Lodi exclaims in amazement that it was a magic arrow. Squat quietly acknowledges that Lodi managed to repel his attack. Lodi smiles smugly, declaring that it was part of his plan. But Squat's dubious tone instantly changes his expression to one of horror. A Squat with a slight flick of the finger signals a real trap. Suddenly, Lodi finds himself at the epicenter of a barrage of arrows flying from all directions. His eyes widen in shock and disbelief at the imminent volley. He becomes a whirlwind of movement, desperately dodging and parrying arrows. Gritting his teeth, Lodi deflects several projectiles at once with two swords. Squat smiles, realizing that arrows alone are not enough to win. The ground beneath Lodi's feet suddenly gives way. He screams in terror, realizing he has fallen into a booby trap. Even as he falls, he continues to deflect arrows, gritting his teeth. The squatter looks down in triumph, believing he has finally won. A close-up of his eye reveals a flash of new tension and surprise. Lodi grabs the arrow with incredible force, just with his teeth. A tense face shows as he stops the tip a moment away from his nose. His body in the air bends in an impossible position, resisting the blow. Squat screams out his shock at such an unthinkable feat. Lodi, sitting at the bottom of the pit, spits out the arrow and sighs with relief. The arrow's magical energy dissolves safely in his hand. Squat voices his amazement at Lodi's incredible reflexes and instincts. He sighs heavily, acknowledging that the fight is over. Lodi asks defiantly if that's all, and Squat confirms. Picking himself up, Lodi stands up, ready to continue their conversation. Squat pats him on the head, marking another draw and wondering why there wasn't a counterattack. Lodi explains that he sensed another hidden trick in him, which impresses Squat. He awkwardly admits that he was only able to read a little of his friend's strategy. Lodi begins to search the surrounding trees, rustling the leaves. He finds a paper talisman with a magic sign nailed to the trunk. Holding it, he wonders how Squat was able to set so many traps unnoticed. Squat embarrassedly admits that it took him so much preparation to have a chance. Lodi proudly takes out his notebook, announcing their 8,050th draw. He rummages through his bag, looking for a notebook and a marker to count. The shot in the sky takes us back to their long history of friendly fighting. Squat explains that he can read Lodi's every move thanks to their years of training. Lodi adds that he knew how Squat would act, and that's why he was able to defuse the arrow trap. With his head tilted in concentration, Lodi is genuinely amazed at his own abilities. Squat calls him a monster, but Lodi admits that he himself does not understand how he does it. Lodi rejects the nickname, turning the blame back on Squat himself. The flashback shows them as children developing strategies, demonstrating their deep bond. Lodi vows to win at least once before the number of draws reaches 10,000. Squat looks at him with a serious and thoughtful expression. Lodi insists that the sheer number of nobodies doesn't bother him at all. Squat reveals that their grueling workout is part of a much larger shared goal. He asks why Lodi keeps records of battles, suggesting that he simply memorized them. Lodi laughs, wondering why he would even remember that. He explains that remembering all past fights helps build strategy. A joyful, slightly naive smile appears on his face. Squat is shocked to learn that Lodi remembers all 32,859 of their fights. He asks if this is really true, and Lodi confirms in all seriousness. Both agree that this is madness, although Lodi believes that it is Squat who is abnormal. A forest tent rustles softly above them as they walk away from the training ground. Lodi suddenly stops, his face becoming serious. He senses something is wrong. He tells the surprised Squat that something is happening in the direction of their village. Squat's eyes open wide as he is suddenly overcome by an unsettling premonition. He states that they should return immediately, trusting their intuition. Lodi, amazed by his friend's haste, bewilderedly agrees. He remembers how Squat reacted similarly to previous disasters and trusts him implicitly. Squat's back is tense. He is sure that this time he will definitely not be mistaken. A tavern sign sways peacefully above the village, giving no indication of impending trouble. Inside the bustling tavern, visitors enjoy the evening, unsuspecting. A young woman peers out the window, surprised by the unexpected rumble. A huge stone golem looms over the village, its roar shaking the walls of the houses. Lodi and Squat arrive, gasping for breath, frozen in horror at what they see. The two boys come face to face with the huge, menacing figure of a bulky golem. Squat recognizes him as the cursed storm golem that is destroying the bridge. Ugly images of other cursed storm spirits appear before my eyes. Lodi asks if the golems are the strongest, and Squat confirms that the Sentinel Squad is powerless. Squat realizes with horror that the golem is looking for the source of magic. Lodi gathers the facts and realizes that he is heading to his mother's forge. Squat is confused as he sees Lodi preparing to recklessly rush into battle. Lodi rushes forward with a predatory smile, ignoring his friend's warnings. He breaks free from Squat's grasp, seized by adrenaline and desperation. Squat's hand reaches out to stop him, but Lodi has already broken free and is racing forward. Squat anxiously calls his name, trying to stop this mad rush. Lodi's foot hits the ground hard, kicking up a cloud of dust. He leaps into the air with a loud battle cry, aiming for the giant. The two swords in his hands are pointed directly at the golem's stone muzzle. The blades instantly break on impact, showering Lodi with wooden splinters. A close-up shows his shocked face with the broken hilts in his hands. From the sidelines, Squat shouts, calling him a fool for such a useless attack. The golem's slap knocks Lodi back, causing him to bounce comically between the stone palms. After the impact, he falls with a thud, sliding along the ground. Golem looks at his hands, realizing that he needs a stronger weapon. Squat, smiling faintly, hints that Lodi wouldn't mind having a stronger weapon either. Lodi's face shows an awareness of the implication of his friend's words. Squat explains that in such a situation, their stubborn mother simply has to agree. Lodi smiles hopefully, admitting that it would be great. He quickly denies excessive joy, claiming he is genuinely concerned. In front of their mother in the forge, they hear her resolute and categorical no. She stands firm, declaring that she will not give them the weapon of ability. Squat pleads, emphasizing that the golem is already at the doorstep. Lodi reminds her mother that she cannot escape, as she is bound by a blacksmith's contract. Her expression remains stern and unwavering as she listens to his words. Lodi confirms her status as a blacksmith with a determined expression. The mother appears as a formidable craftswoman, not just a creator of tools. The flashback shows that the blacksmith's soul is connected to the magical lines of the earth. She refuses again, believing that nothing good will come of their fight. A stunned Lodi calls out Squat's name, asking what to do now. The mother declares that her word is final and orders them to find another way. Squat, with a sly smile, mentions the gunpowder stockpile in the village. He notes that using it will cause destruction, which can be avoided with weapons. An expression of shocked realization appears on the mother's face. She clicks her tongue, irritated that they've bitten her and driven her into a corner. Surrendering, she agrees, and the boys celebrate their cunning victory. From a massive chest, she takes out powerful ability weapons. She hands Lodi his blades, the majestic swords of beginning. Squat smiles contentedly, having received the decorated grimoire of the end. Mother explains that this is what the ability weapons are called. She sternly warns her sons not to do anything stupid with such power. A close-up of the empty chest is accompanied by her words that this power is not for children. It teaches that the effectiveness of a weapon depends on who uses it. Squat confidently interrupts, saying they know this and have studied it carefully. A strong jolt shakes the workshop, and Squat calls for hurry. The mother calmly says she is going back to work and wishes them luck. Lodi begs her to hide, but she smiles softly with her eyes closed. She says that if they fight, the problem is already solved. Waving goodbye, she adds one last word of encouragement. "I believe in you." The boys are touched by their mother's unwavering faith in them. Squat confidently accepts responsibility, and Lodi promises to do his best. Watching them, the mother sees Squat hurrying to Lodi. The guys rush out of the workshop, holding new weapons in their hands. Lodi exclaims that the sounds of destruction are getting closer. The workshop door clicks shut as they run out into the street. They freeze in place, their faces filled with shock and horror. The cursed storm golem looms over them, continuing its destruction. In a close-up, his burning eyes flash with destructive intent. Lodi seethes with rage, while Squat calmly says it's their duty to stop him. Squat reveals a new grimoire, asking the book about its capabilities. Lodi looks at his friend in surprise. A slight hint of surprise appears on Squat's face as he reads. He holds a decorated book, from which a faint magical glow emanates. His pupil narrows as understanding flashes through his mind. He defines the book's power as the rune of the end, capable of creating magic circles. With a confident smile, Squat asks Lodi if he knows how to use his power. Clutching his swords, Lodi assures him that he roughly understands. Focusing, Squat announces that he is launching a counterattack. He activates his ability weapon, the grimoire of the end, and it flashes a bright light. A luminous stylus in the shape of a key appears from the glow above the book. Squat smiles and grips the magic key tightly in his hand. He understands that by writing runes, he can activate magic circles. With a spectacular movement, he draws a huge, complex magic circle in the air. The runic symbols flash, and the spell is instantly prepared. He explains that writing runes activates the corresponding magic. Standing inside the circle, Squat directs the key and commands the spell. A devastating beam of energy shoots out towards the golem. The explosive blow destroys the golem's right arm completely. Squat notes with surprise that the monster's limb has been completely severed. Lodi doesn't believe it could have been demolished with one blow. Squat watches the result with pleasure, quietly saying that it is incredible. Lodi, still amazed, exclaims how powerful Squat's ability weapon is. Squat explains that his grimoire bypasses the lengthy rituals usually required for magic. Meanwhile, the golem's destroyed arm begins to tremble and regenerate. Looking at his revived opponent, Squat declares that this power suits him perfectly. The earth trembles from the heavy footsteps of the golem rushing towards them. Lodi shouts a warning in panic, but Squat remains completely calm. The giant figure of a golem fills their entire view, approaching with a thunderous roar. Squat coolly advises his friend not to panic as he prepares his next move. He displays a simple pentagram, causing ribbons of white energy to swirl. The ribbons tear forward and entangle the rushing golem. Magical bonds abruptly stop his frantic attack. For a moment, the golem freezes, completely losing its inertia. Lodi exclaims in alarm as the spell suddenly weakens and the golem breaks free. He roars, his eyes blaze, and the spell shatters into pieces. Lodi, grinning broadly, orders Squat to stand back, stating that it is now his turn. He lunges forward, blurring into a swift, decisive movement. Squat watches him, eyes narrowed in silent concentration. With a sly smile, he snaps his fingers, activating a hidden trap. A huge magic circle flares up under the golem's feet. Lodi looks back in surprise at the unexpected attack. The golem is unsuspecting when the ground beneath him begins to glow. The ground explodes in a powerful pillar, throwing the monster upward. Lodi, stunned by what he saw, freezes from the force of the explosion. Squat explains that his grimoire also allows him to set convenient traps. Impressed by his friend's strength, Lodi exclaims that he is now invincible, and Squat asks about his weapon. With a look of determination, Lodi declares that it is time to test his strength. He crosses the swords of beginning, and the blades begin to hum, filling with radiance. A bright glow bursts from the blades. Lodi officially activates his ability weapon. With a broad smile, he proudly announces that his power is called the Rune of Beginnings. Squat, with a sly smile, wonders what exactly this power is capable of. Lodi's confidence fades a little, and he stops his gaze on the swords, hesitating to answer. He finally admits that they enhance his physical abilities, which Squat immediately calls too simple. Lodi blushes, offendedly denying that Squat is incredibly rude. He quickly assures that he was joking, adding that such direct force is perfect for Lodi's style. He encourages his friend to give it a try, and Lodi agrees with new determination. Lodi bursts forward, blurring in motion, and rushes at the recovering stone golem. From a distance, Squat notices that his friend is moving much faster than before. As the golem creaks as it rises, Squat wonders if Lodi is planning a rear-end attack. With a sudden jerk, a deep, burning gash appears on the golem's head and back. Squat's jaw drops, eyes widening in shock at the instant and devastating attack. The huge stone golem begins to crumble, disintegrating from one powerful blow. With a final deafening roar, it turns into a mountain of debris and a cloud of dust. Squat approaches and puts his hand on his friend's shoulder, full of sincere admiration. He admits that he didn't even see the hit and asks how many times Lodi managed to hit him. Changing his mind, Squat admits that such a powerful body strengthening is not at all simple. Lodi, catching his breath, agrees that his ability weapon is not primitive at all. He looks at the shining blades, thinking that with such power, normal training is impossible. But Squat sees this as an opportunity and says their new abilities will make things more interesting. He suggests testing their strength against each other right now, which horrifies Lodi. Lodi points to the devastated landscape, arguing that it is too dangerous. He continues to protest, fearing that someone will be seriously injured in the duel. The Squat reminds Lodi of his desire to win, just as a pile of rocks begins to move behind him. Squat sighs in surprise, realizing with horror that the golem has the ability to regenerate. Both of them watch with their mouths open as the pile of stones begins to tremble and move. With a deafening explosion, the colossal stone golem is rebuilt from the rubble. Lodi lands hard, stunned by the realization that the monster has recovered. Squat points out that cutting off the head is useless, and Lodi, in despair, asks what to do next. Squat's face becomes serious and focused. He feverishly ponders a new plan. He orders Lodi to mercilessly beat the golem's limbs to immobilize and exhaust it. Lodi accepts the plan without hesitation, his gaze full of determination. He accelerates and hits the golem with a powerful acrobatic kick to the head. He lands with a series of punches, his feet hitting the stone loudly, preparing for the next attack. Then he delivers a powerful slash, severing the monster's massive stone arm. Narrowing his eyes in concentrated fury, he continues his relentless, swift attack. Another powerful kick shatters part of the golem's stone armor, scattering debris all around. The golem instantly begins regeneration, pulling scattered stones back in and seamlessly repairing damage. He responds with brute force, bringing down a huge stone fist and cracking the ground with the impact. Lodi dodges between devastating attacks, screaming back. Each heavy step of the golem shakes the ruined earth, reminding us of its gigantic weight. Squat watches the cycle of destruction and restoration intently, thoughtfully analyzing the battle. He sees the seemingly endless regeneration and notes how the golem easily repels Lodi's blows. Despite Lodi's frantic attack pace, Squat notices that the golem's regeneration rate is not decreasing at all. A terrible truth dawns on him. The monster uses the earth itself as raw material for regeneration. Lodi exclaims in despair, realizing that the golem can regenerate infinitely. Squat's expression changes to one of excitement. He announces that the difficulty is the most exciting part of the fight. Lodi looks back at him in complete bewilderment at this sudden cheerfulness. Squat asks if he sees an obvious path to victory, to which Lodi vehemently replies no. Despite the confusion, Squat takes out the grimoire and asks Lodi to stop the monster. Although confused, Lodi believes his friend, and with a determined smile, he throws himself at the golem again. Meanwhile, two uniformed men, Pain and Helia, appear on a rocky ledge, observing the chaos below. Pain curses, calling it a horror that the cursed storm spirit is raging right in the middle of the village. Helia watches as the golem crushes buildings, feeling deep compassion for the unfortunate residents. The monster continues its route, shattering the ground with the gigantic force of its footsteps. Helia regrets that they were unable to warn the villagers about the danger in advance. Pain suggests searching the area for survivors, hoping that people have found shelter. Suddenly, Helia notices someone near the angry golem and calls out to Pain in alarm. Shock appears on his face as he looks in the direction of her alarmed exclamation. A complete picture opens before them. A lone figure fighting a colossal golem among the ruins of the village. Pain, stunned, asks if the child is really fighting a stone giant. He calls it the epitome of recklessness and a pointless attempt against such a powerful enemy. His gaze softens for a moment as he notes the young fighter's incredible agility. But despite the boy's impressive moves, Pain understands that this is a failed and doomed fight. Helia notices another child nearby, standing aside from the fight. She assumes that the swordsman is fighting so desperately to protect this seemingly defenseless child. Pain agrees that the situation is critical. Convinced that both boys will die, he decides to intervene, and together with the determined Helia, they rush into the very hell of the battle. Squat calmly displays the complex runes in his grimoire, fully immersed in magical work. Pain yells at the boy to run away from here because it's dangerous. Squat calmly looks back at the approaching soldiers, his gaze remaining impenetrable. As they run closer, Pain again insistently orders him to leave the combat zone immediately. Finally, Squat speaks, giving a defiant look. Why run if they're about to kill the monster? A loud explosion cuts off Pain's angry response, forcing him and Helia to silence. Both of them flinch as the golem's huge fist sinks into the ground right next to them. The figure of a golem rises before them, its power and size beyond doubt. Amidst the dust and chaos, Lodi stands still, having managed to knock the monster to the ground. He is ready for his next move, holding the swords of beginning at either side of his body, his silhouette clearly visible against the smoke. Pain realizes that the boys don't know. Golems cannot be defeated with physical blows alone. Despite this, he is amazed that one young man managed to bring the colossus to its knees. Lodi's feat makes Pain question whether this guy is even human. Pain knows that the golem's regeneration is limitless, and any victory seems impossible. Squat confirms his words, asking if he is sure that the key to victory is to stop the monster's movements. With a confident smile, Squat suggests immediately testing this theory in practice. Pain is speechless, not understanding where the guy gets such unwavering confidence from. Squat declares that they will now find out if the golem is truly invincible. Lodi is stunned by the unexpected twist in their plan. He passes the shocked soldiers, his footsteps thudding dully on the ground as he dashes forward. With blurred speed, Lodi closes the distance to the recovering golem. He soars high into the air, aiming a powerful kick at the monster's head. The two soldiers watch in shock as Lodi rejoins the battle. Squat notes with a confident smile that Lodi seems to understand what's going on. Lodi smiles and admits that he doesn't know the plan at all, but his intuition told him to move away. Squat confirms that his friend's intuition was correct, surprising both soldiers. Pain exclaims in surprise as he sees Lodi's latest actions in his approach. Lodi slaps a paper talisman on the golem, and its entire body becomes covered in a multitude of glowing magic circles. Dozens of glowing magical symbols cover the body of a huge cursed storm spirit golem. The four watch as it looms, waiting for the inevitable explosive denouement. With a slight movement of his fingers, the young strategist Squat gives the signal. He calls the monster by name and challenges it to exceed his expectations. A deafening explosion engulfs the golem, engulfing it in a wave of fire. The four watch as the shockwave rips through the air, scattering debris everywhere. Helia in uniform says in shock that the golem fell too easily. Her partner Pain can't believe that the guy even managed to build a magical barrier. A huge cloud of smoke and dust rises above the destroyed village. Pain realizes that now the golem will not be able to regenerate without large fragments to rebuild. Squat looks on in almost disappointment, wondering aloud why the monster never recovered. A slight sly smile appears on his face as he reproaches his defeated enemy for his weakness. Lodi smiles back, agreeing that the opponent should have fought better. Soldiers Pain and Helia look on in disbelief, not understanding who these guys are. Pain, covered in sweat, is still trying to make sense of the incredible thing that happened. He recalls that he had never heard of children defeating the cursed storm spirit. Helia stands nearby, contemplating their next steps with a serious expression. In the distance, among the ruins, two small figures are seen waving. Helia suggests recruiting boys, noting their talent and appropriate age for training. She watches them with a focused, analytical gaze, having finally made her decision. Clenching her fists, she confirms that there is no doubt about their immense talent. Lodi and Squat look at each other, sensing a chance for negotiation. In the distance, the silhouette of the defeated golem fades against the cloudy sky. Squat calmly explains that they came to the aid of the soldiers because they were certain of their defeat. He finds it strange that someone with a weapon of ability could lose at all. He rejects the idea that such strength does not guarantee victory. Soldier Pain is confused, unable to find words to respond to this childish logic. Helia angrily declares that 8 professional artifact users were hospitalized after fighting this golem. Squat coldly concludes that the commander of those professionals was incompetent. A stunned Pain breaks out in a sweat as he is forced to admit that he is the commander. Squat apologizes condescendingly, offering to teach the commander how to fight properly. Pain is so stunned by the boy's audacity that he is momentarily speechless. He explodes in rage, calling Squat an arrogant brat, but he remains unmoved. Pain reluctantly admits that the boys defeated a golem that they themselves could not handle. He decides to approach the more polite-looking Lodi, hoping for a better conversation. The commander asks how long Lodi has been using his ability weapon. Lodi cheerfully replies that he only received his powerful weapon today. A stunned Pain asks how he mastered the techniques of a professional fighter. Squat reveals that they fought 32,859 times, and every fight ended in a draw. Pain concludes that these children are not just unusual, but also completely devoid of proper manners. He decides to recruit these undeniably talented guys into the organization at any cost. A female voice notes that they did manage to take down the monster. The boy's mother appears, asking if the barrier organization has arrived in the village. The soldiers are stunned, not understanding how she knows about their secret organization. A familiar image suddenly flashes through Pain's mind, and he begins to recognize her. Helia thanks the woman for the blacksmith's work, but she brushes off the praise. She places her hands on the boy's shoulders, declaring that she has come as their mother. Helia freezes with wide eyes, shocked by this unexpected discovery. The soldiers decide to try to convince their mother, realizing that dealing with blacksmiths can be difficult. Lodi looks at her with a question in his eyes. He asks what the barrier organization is. She explains that this is a group that protects humanity by fighting spirits and setting up barriers. Lodi's eyes light up with excitement, and he exclaims how cool that sounds. Pain smiles, finding the boy's sincere reaction pleasantly appropriate for his age. The mother asks if Lodi wants to join the organization. Lodi hesitates, saying he can't just leave her alone. She looks at him with a soft but knowing smile, preparing to say something. She reveals that the village is destined to be swallowed up by the eternal storm. The soldiers are stunned because this information has not yet been announced publicly. Pain takes this as the good sign, believing it motivates the boys to join. Pain says with enthusiasm that their help could save thousands of lives. But Squat is more cautious, wondering if joining would help their own cause. He asks Lodi, asking for confirmation once again what they really want to achieve. Squat gives his friend a sharp, meaningful look. Lodi meets his gaze, and his expression hardens with determination. Together, they declare that their goal is to completely eliminate the eternal storm. Pain dismisses the idea as impossible, asking how they will even get close to it. He explains that this is humanity's greatest desire, but it is currently unattainable. Squat agrees that protecting against a natural disaster would be really difficult. A single word hangs in the air, changing the tone of the conversation. Squat asks a chilling question. What if the storm is a man-made disaster? Pain is horrified, not understanding how the guy could have learned such a thing. Squat senses that this commander is confused and asks why he thinks that. He offers to exchange information, refusing to reveal the cards first. Pain tries to brush it off, calling it a childish fantasy, and coughs nervously. Inside, he admits that the guy is serious and that the information is true. He is seized with panic. He understands that he cannot allow this strictly classified fact to leak. The commander nervously glances at everyone, finding himself in a difficult situation. Helia looks at her friend, feeling a tense confrontation. She carefully assesses the situation. Her outlook becomes prudent and calculating. Aptly changing the subject, she asks her mother how she learned about the fate of the village. Squat smiles out of the corner of his mouth, realizing that she is diverting the conversation away from the secret. The commander sighs in exasperation, cornered by the boy's cleverness. The squatter insists, asking if the fate of the village has already been finally decided. With a heavy sigh, Pain reluctantly admits that he does. He assures that the organization will provide residents with a new place to resettle. Lodi silently ponders the grim news. His thoughts immediately turn to his mother, and he asks if she can move in. A look of sudden, grim realization appears on Pain's face. He explains that as a blacksmith, she is bound by her soul to this land and cannot leave. He falls silent, unable to find any words of comfort in the face of this terrible truth. Lodi is stunned by the news of his mother's imminent fate. He looks at Squat, his gaze filled with shock and confusion. Squat clings to the commander's words, asking if the problem can be solved by force. Pain mumbles, trying to argue, but the meaning is already clear. He admits that there is a way, but insists that it is dangerous and unrealistic. The commander is surprised at how quickly Squat calculated this unrealistic possibility. The Squat demands details, promising to join the organization if they are told. He turns to Lodi, asking if he agrees to such a risky deal. Lodi smiles broadly, declaring his unwavering trust in Squat's decisions. The Squat emphasizes that their cooperation with the barrier organization depends on its benefits to them. Torn between doubts, Pain worries about the consequences of revealing the truth. Suddenly, Helia steps forward, proposing a duel to decide whether to share the secret. Stunned by such audacity, Pain shouts her name in disbelief. She calmly explains the rules of the fight, emphasizing that everything is allowed. Interrupting her preparations, she takes Pain aside for a private conversation. An enraged Pain demands an explanation, but she calmly calms him down. Determination burns in her eyes. Helia says that they simply have to win. She reminds Pain that these two children managed to defeat the Golem. If they possess such incredible power, perhaps they can be overcome. Maybe, she whispers, they can even do something with the impossible force line stone. Helia reveals her true plan. The boys have already agreed to join, so victory is guaranteed. With a confident, radiant smile, she declares that as their eldest, she will not lose. Pain remains silent, his face serious as he considers her complex strategy. A grim smile appears on his lips as he admits that he would like to fight them. Among the ruins, Helia announces the final challenge. They must win. An excited Lodi asks what will happen if they lose the duel. Helia clarifies that they will not learn the secret, but will still join the organization. Lodi shouts indignantly, asking if this means leaving his mother to her fate in case of defeat. Squat says with a sly smile that he likes the prospect of winning more. Pain looks on in surprise at the boy's quick agreement and his unwavering confidence. Squat looks him straight in the eye, confirming that a deal has been made between them. From the sidelines, their mother enthusiastically encourages them, urging them to show their strength. Both pairs of opponents stand in fighting stances, their feet firmly planted on the ground. Pain exhales heavily, confidently preparing for the upcoming duel. He introduces himself as Pain, a self-proclaimed expert in fighting against humans. Squat sarcastically remarks that it is precisely because of this specialization that he is bad at fighting spirits. Helium introduces itself, explaining that it has the power to heal and strengthen the body. She reassures her partner, assuring him that she can heal any of his wounds. Pain listens to her words with a serious and focused expression. A confident smile appears on his face. He realizes their winning strategy. Pain boldly declares that he alone is enough to handle two amateurs. Squat presents the fight as a 2-on-1 format, and Lodi feels they are being underestimated. Pain just smiles mockingly, confident that he can defeat them both himself. Squat orders Lodi to lead the vanguard and engage Pain one-on-one. Lodi apologizes in advance for any possible injuries, promising to restrain force. A powerful gust of wind cuts through the air as Pain explodes forward at incredible speed. The force of his lunge is immense, and his movements are blurred with speed and menacing power. Lodi is shocked to realize that Pain is a completely different person in battle. Squat, calmly watching from the sidelines, declares that they have no intention of losing. Pain prepares by activating his ability weapon, the Sword of Destruction. Helium also activates her power, the Dagger of Invulnerability, surrounded by glowing particles. Among the ruins, Lodi and Pain stand opposite each other, ready to duel. Pain internally assesses Lodi's talent, relying on his experience to achieve victory. He plans to neutralize Squat's magic by engaging Lodi in close combat. With grim determination, he decides that Lodi must be brought down first. Pain announces that the fight will officially begin when the coin he tosses touches the ground. He devises a cunning trick, using soft sand to muffle the sound of the fall. With a deft flick of his thumb, he launches the coin high into the air. A shiny coin spins in flight, and its fall marks the beginning of the battle. Lodi closely follows the arc of the coin's flight, his gaze serious and intense. Pain's gaze is sharp, sweat stands out on his forehead. He prepares to strike. The coin is about to touch the soft, sandy ground. Almost falling, Pain lunges forward, seeking to end the fight instantly. To his complete surprise, the target had already disappeared from the spot where he wanted to hit. Looking up, he realizes that the counterattack is coming from above. A sharp clang of metal rings out as their swords clash. Pain smiles confidently as he parries the blow. Lodi's aerial counterattack still goes through, stunning Pain with his speed of reaction. The fight explodes into a flurry of blows, after which Lodi retreats with a leap backward. It lands easily, kicking up a cloud of dust, and prepares for another collision. Pain is forced to admit that his opponent's reflexes are well above average. He presses his heel into the ground, restraining the boy's unexpected strength. Their swords clash again and again, and Pain realizes that Lodi is stronger than he thought. On the side, Squat notes that experience greatly affects the effectiveness of any ability. He sees that Lodi is still unsure of how to properly handle his new power. The fight continues, and Lodi seems to be starting to lose ground to the experienced swordsman. Lodi realizes that he can't win this way, and decides to reveal more of his strength. Squat watches anxiously, afraid that Lodi will accidentally kill his opponent. A loud explosion marks a dramatic increase in Lodi's raw power. Pain is stunned, realizing that the boy had not fought at full strength before. The weight and power of the new strikes are enormous and outweigh his capabilities. An eerie aura spreads around Lodi, like the presence of a cursed storm spirit. Pain understands that the situation has become critical, and he needs to quickly end the fight. He is surprised to notice Squat in the distance, preparing a magical attack. As the blast of magic soars forward, Pain wonders why it would risk hitting Lodi. He is confident that from this position the blow will hit his own teammate. The magic projectile whizzes past Lodi's head with perfectly timed timing. The beam misses its target, causing Pain to exclaim in surprise. The magical energy dissipates with a bang, safely absorbing into the ground. Pain doesn't understand how Lodi managed to dodge the attack from his dead zone. He feverishly wonders if they have the ability to telepathy or a secret signal. Off to the side, Squat notes Lodi's perfect dodge with a thoughtful hum. Pain's sharp gaze glides across the battlefield, carefully tracking Helia's position. He sees Squat moving and thinks he has finally figured out the deception. Pain determines Squat's new position among the ruins of the battlefield. He is sure that he is trying to enter his blind spot as planned. Lodi delivers a powerful blow, exclaiming that Pain has fallen into their trap. While dust obscures visibility, the glow betrays Helium's hidden presence. Pain smiles, ordering Helia to activate their real trap. He claims that the real expert in fighting humans is Helia. Her small dagger, he thought, would be impossible to spot in the cloud of sand. Pain and Helia exchange looks of triumph, confident of imminent victory. A shining barrier appears before them, deflecting Helia's knife with a sharp clang. The blade ricochets off the magical defense and flies back towards the fighters. Lodi picks up the deflected knife in a leap, calling it a great pass. Pain is horrified to realize that the knife was used in the attack after it ricocheted off the barrier. The blade sticks into the ground at his feet, clear evidence of the attack's failure. He looks up and sees with alarm as Lodi takes off for the decisive blow. Pain realizes he is trapped and will be unable to block either the knife or Lodi's attack. Squat watches with a smug smile, revealing that this entire combination was his calculation. Faced with inevitable defeat, Pain makes a desperate attempt to play to a draw. Lodi asks in shock why the soldier is ignoring the knife flying straight at him. Squat notices the reckless rush, accurately identifying the better death than defeat spirit in the opponent. With a resolute cry, Lodi rushes towards Pain, declaring that the battle is not yet over. From the sidelines, Helia anxiously agrees, knowing that the outcome is not yet decided. A thud echoes as Lodi's powerful lunge meets Pain's block. Lodi unleashes a final wave of energy that roars over the opponent. Strategist Squat watches the end of the duel with a sharp, focused gaze. The fight ends when Lodi's sword comes to rest close to Pain's armored gauntlet. Helia exclaims in shock, asking if her partner Pain really lost. Squat calmly informs the healer that she too has been defeated in the duel. He points down, directing her gaze to the reason for her unexpected exit. In a flashback, Helia stands on a glowing magic circle and is suddenly surprised by the attack. She screams in fear, losing her balance and falling to the ground. Back in the present moment, a saddened Helia admits that she could not even think about defeat. She sits down on the ground, breathing out short, heavy breaths, with a note of tired resignation. A worried Lodi runs up to Pain asking if he's okay. Pain brushes off the laceration on his arm, shocking his young opponent. While Helia heals him, Squat recalls with surprise Pain's reaction to her knife throw. He admits that he didn't react because he didn't see the dagger at all. Helia, holding her throwing knives, explains that her tactic is to strike at every opportunity. Pain then asks Squat about his sudden change of position during the fight. Squat explains that he limited Helia's possible locations, making her attack easy to block. Pain and Helia are amazed, admitting that his foresight has completely defeated them. Pain admits that he wanted to teach them the dangers of even one dagger, but he admits that in return he learned a lesson about how to actually fight. Squat and Lodi laugh quietly, enjoying the victory of their elaborate plan. Pain praises Lodi for his ability to dodge magic from behind, calling it a useful skill. Lodi cheerfully explains that he dodged thanks to his reflexes, not his ability to detect magic. He sincerely asks if it's normal to just feel the magic approaching. The rest, stunned, admit that they don't understand what he's talking about. Lodi modestly adds that he wouldn't be able to dodge if Squat attacked seriously. Squat confirms that his punches were weak. It was part of the plan from the start. Then he sharply turns his gaze to Pain, asking why he didn't use his weapon. Quickly clarifies what he meant, as if Pain couldn't use it, not just didn't want to. Pain sighs, admitting that his ability weapon is difficult to use in such conditions. He laughs, agreeing that you can't hide anything from Squat, but refuses to reveal the details. Squat smiles with the air of someone who has finally proven himself right. Now he demands the information they earned in battle. A way to save the village. Pain looks at those present and agrees to fulfill this promise. He thinks to himself that these children are real beasts, but warns them not to act recklessly. He feels they can do the impossible, but he's still worried about revealing secret information. The squatters confidently demand a method to save their village. Lodi jokingly reprimands his friend for making his grim face again. Helia agrees to the deal, but begs them not to do anything reckless. Lodi directly asks if the barrier stone has been stolen. Pain, stunned, asks how Lodi could have known that. Squat explains that it's simple logic. A barrier stone is the only solution to the problem. He concludes that the organization was transporting the stone nearby at the time of the attack. He further suggests that their task was to clear the way when the stone was stolen. Lodi asks for confirmation of the theory, and Pain embarrassedly admits that this is indeed the case. Helia asks how he guessed that the stone was stolen, not lost. The Squat points to Pain's earlier words about the lack of necessary strength. Broken by the guy's logic, Pain admits that Squat is absolutely right. Helia whispers that Squat is a reliable ally, but a terrible enemy. Lodi is filled with hope, because now he believes he can save the village and his mother. Pain's expression darkens as he confirms this, but adds a stern warning. He explains that their enemy is a monster that destroyed the entire escort squad. Lodi swallows and asks if the opponent is really that strong. Pain pulls out a small device, offering to show what they will be dealing with. He presses a button, and the device projects a holographic recording of the escort squad's battle. Pain's fingers deftly operate the tiny, intricate mechanism of reproduction. The guys are delighted with the convenient technology capable of showing footage from the battlefield. The footage shows a chaotic scene of carnage, with a huge, deafening explosion. The soldier, screaming in pain, flies away from the powerful shockwave. The officer shouts that there is a wounded man and orders the medics to be called. Another giant explosion with a roar tears the squad to pieces. The image twitches and fades, leaving only a band of interference on the screen. Pain explains that the main enemy is not in the video, but he can show him now. With a sharp movement, he displays a static image of the enemy in front of them. Squat stares at the projection, his mouth barely open in surprise. Lodi is equally amazed, his eyes wide open as he stares at the image. He asks incredulously if this monstrous armored creature is really human. Pain confirms that, in general, it was indeed once a human being. Helia notices that both of the creature's hands have combat artifacts embedded in them. Pain shares the headquarters' conclusions that the enemy was likely a blacksmith. He explains that the lines of force in that area are anomalous and not subject to natural contract. The image shows a figure being forcibly filled with power through an artificial contract. Lodi is horrified at the thought of such a disgusting intervention. Squat suggests that the artifacts maintain an unnatural contract with the lines of force. Pain gives the enemy's codename, the blacksmith who rules the domain. He explains that the name comes from a devastating explosion they saw earlier. Its domain is a barrier with a radius of 200 meters, where everything inside explodes. Squat clarifies whether this means the previous explosion was not their attack. Pain adds that any aerial attacks, even magic, are blocked inside the domain. Squat grimly concludes that close and ranged combat are useless here. Lodi sighs, admitting that their new enemy is a real nuisance. Suddenly a thought strikes him, and a moment from the recording comes to life in his memory. Squat turns to his friend, wondering what he's up to. Lodi asks if they noticed the area glowing before the explosion. Squat and Helia admit that they have never seen anything like it. Lodi insists it only lasted a moment, but his mind is already working at full speed. He stares intently at the flickering, cracked holographic image. He points at him excitedly, claiming to see something, but Pain doesn't notice anything. He asks confusedly if no one really sees this, surprised by their indifference. His face clouds as he realizes he's the only one who noticed the detail. Squat, remaining practical, decides to think about strategy while on the road. He confidently declares that they will, of course, fight the enemy. Lodi echoes his friend's determination, his face filled with indomitable will. Pain sighs in annoyance, and Helia just smiles, resigned to their recklessness. When the plan is finally approved, Helia reluctantly agrees to this risky adventure. She insists that they must retreat if victory becomes impossible, and her companion supports this. The mother sends them off with final instructions, and Lodi thanks her with sincere enthusiasm. A small group of 4 sets off on a journey, crossing endless rocky wastelands. Along the way, Squat asks Helia to explain in detail her and Pain's abilities as artifact bearers. Pain sighs, thinking he might as well contact headquarters while the others are talking. Hearing his name, Lodi looks around to see what his senior officer wants. He sincerely asks who their enemy is, as his motives remain unclear. Pain grimly begins to talk about the nature of the enemy they will face. He discovers that their enemy is the White Blood Family, an organization that seeks to create its own state. Their cruel ideology involves the enslavement of all who do not belong to their bloodline. Pain concludes the story with rumors of the longevity of their leaders, confirming the ruthlessness of the group. The group leader announces that they have almost reached their destination. They walk along a high ridge, surveying the desolate space below. The squad stops abruptly, frozen in shock at the sight of the devastated camp in the distance. A close-up of a body in armor confirms the extent of the violence they have heard about. The 4 stand in somber silence over the body of the fallen warrior. Pain apologizes to the deceased, regretting not having time to bury them properly. Squat shields his eyes from the sun, noticing something in the distance, and Pain warns him to be careful. In the distance, a lone figure is visible, dragging a huge stone barrier behind him. The effort required to move such weight astounds observers. Pain explains that moving a stone usually requires an entire transport team. Suddenly, his wrist communicator beeps, distracting him from his observations. Looking at the message, Pain frowns, realizing the news is bad. He reports that reinforcements will not arrive in time for the start of the eternal storm. Squat decides to return the stone first, and only then think about transporting it. Pain grabs Lodi, asking how they even plan to get the stone back now. Squat declares with unwavering confidence that their enemy has an obvious weakness. Pain and Helia react with surprise, shocked by Squat's bold statement. He explains that the enemy cannot use his powerful explosive technique in close combat. His partner notes that the main problem is not the enemy's weakness, but how to approach him. Lodi remembers that flash and asks if it was possible to dodge the explosion. Pain reacts in shock to this reckless idea, finding it completely unrealistic. After a pause, Lodi confidently declares that he can do it. Pain objects, reminding him that he will only have half a second before the explosion. Squat smiles, declaring that half a second is more than enough for Lodi. He orders his friend to neutralize the enemy's barrier, promising that they will take care of the rest. Lodi's eyes light up with determination, and he agrees to try. Squat looks at him with concentration and seriousness, preparing to begin the plan. With a loud roar, Lodi activates the Blades of Beginning, making a wide sweeping motion. His comrades retreat to a safe distance, and Helia warns not to overdo it. She grimly reminds him that her treatment cannot bring back the dead. Lodi shudders nervously, begging not to say such terrible things. His anxiety quickly changes to unwavering determination before rushing forward. With tremendous tension, Lodi increases his physical strength to an incredible 120%. He announces the start of the attack and bursts forward, kicking up a thick cloud of dust. Pain freezes in absolute delight, amazed by his frenetic pace. A fierce smile appears on Lodi's face as he closes the distance in a flash. He shouts over his shoulder that the others need to get closer to the goal too. The huge opponent drops the heavy cage he was dragging with a dull thud. The only visible eye flashes with fury as he turns to face Lodi's approach. The metal cage crashes into the ground with a deafening thud. A giant with unnaturally pumped muscles and spiked gloves appears before them. Lodi grits his teeth, realizing that at 120% of his strength, the enemy has definitely noticed him. He realizes that there is nowhere else to hide, and prepares to attack head-on. With no other choice, he decides to break through the enemy's front line of defense. A wave of adrenaline covers him as he realizes he is already within enemy domain. The opponent raises a spiked right fist, and Lodi waits for an explosion. A sudden flash of light illuminates the battlefield just before the impact. Lodi's eyes widen as he notices this signal, the moment to act. At that very moment, a huge fiery explosion erupts from the spot where Lodi was standing. From afar, his comrades watch, and Pain announces that the battle has begun. The enemy is momentarily confused, realizing that his powerful blow has missed. Lodi elegantly soars into the air, jumping over the blast wave. His friends freeze in amazement, seeing this daring and successful maneuver. The huge enemy once again unleashes a devastating charge from its massive gauntlet. Lodi playfully dodges, landing easily as the ground behind him explodes. A confident smile appears on his face. Now he is certain that he will be able to avoid attacks. He gently descends to the ground, never taking his eyes off his enemy near the cage. Lodi carefully assesses his opponent, noticing 2 artifacts in his powerful right hand. He quickly comes to the conclusion that the left hand is responsible for the barrier. Twisting upwards in the air, he confidently decides that it will be easy. After landing, he prepares to attack and shouts the start of the assault. Suddenly he stumbles, confused by a strange muffled sound from the enemy. The giant, in a hoarse voice, urges him to go further. A third bloodshot eye opens on the opponent's forehead, and he continues his strange request. He shouts for Lodi to kill him, shocking all the witnesses. Lodi, not understanding what is happening, exclaims in open surprise. His comrades are equally stunned and don't understand what he just said. Squat calmly assumes that the man is being controlled by an outside force. Pain wonders aloud who could be so controlling or keeping him in check. Lodi yells for him to turn off the artifacts if he really doesn't want to fight. The squatter believes that his actions are programmed for certain environmental conditions. Lodi understands that reasons don't matter. He doesn't act of his own free will. With new determination, he declares that he will stop him and rushes forward. He closes the distance, knowing that the explosion will not work at close range. Jumping up, he shouts that he will take the enemy's hand. His sword stops the flickering energy shield from the giant's left hand. A powerful block knocks Lodi back, causing the sword to clang dully. He lands, staring in fear at the power of his opponent's physical attack. The giant coldly orders Lodi to dodge, his gaze becoming threatening and harsh. Lodi is stunned by the enemy's sudden command and change in tactics. The giant's fist crashes into the ground, crushing the stone with incredible force. Dodging, Lodi realizes that a direct hit would break his arm completely. He exclaims in annoyance, increasing the gain and rushing into the attack again. His blow is again stopped by the impenetrable shield on the enemy's left arm. He screams in rage, realizing that his opponent is blocking all attacks with his left hand. Lodi understands that to get closer, he needs to destroy this shield hand. The only chance to win is to break through the powerful defense and strike at the hull. But he knows that a direct blow with the enemy's right hand will be fatal. Doubts cloud his mind when he thinks about his mother and his native village. Watching the fierce battle, the friends realize that time is running out. Squat makes a difficult decision, calling out to Lodi to retreat and regroup. Landing softly, Lodi freezes, standing with his back to the enemy in deep thought. He decides not to worry his friends, hardening his own resolve. With a wild scream, he raises his gain to a dangerous 250%. He dashes forward, roaring a challenge to the armored giant. His fist collides with the enemy's spiked gauntlet in a desperate attempt to break through. A powerful wave rises from the impact. Lodi does his best to hold back the overwhelming force. There is a terrible crack as his arm breaks under the pressure. He screams in pain, but continues to push forward with his broken arm. Lodi's face is distorted by a grimace of suffering from an unbearable trauma. Despite the agony, he exclaims triumphantly. The distance has been shortened. Friends watching from a distance call out his name in horror. His sword falls from his hands, and his body collapses under the weight of pain. Squat calls out his comrade's name, his face contorted in despair. Lodi's eyes are wide and empty, her body going into shock. Squat freezes, gripped by horror, watching his friend fall. The victorious giant stands silently over the unconscious Lodi. Suddenly, a jet of blood shoots from the giant's neck, and he staggers back with a scream. On the side of the road, the healer Helia gasps in surprise, shocked by the unexpected turn of events. She points to the horizon, where a huge magical barrier begins to collapse. The rest of the squad rushes forward as chaotic energy pierces the air. Lodi, kneeling but alive, quietly calls out Helia's name. Smiling through the pain, he asks to take care of his hand later. The giant, also kneeling, praises Lodi for his wonderful blow. With grim determination, he begs Lodi to kill him. Lodi and Pain watch as Squat calmly agrees to fulfill this request. Squat unfolds his grimoire, promising to grant the loser's last wish. He explains that it is impossible to save the body, but it is still possible to save the soul. The small disc-shaped device on the giant's chest begins to tremble. From a giant magic circle in the sky, Squat summons the flame hammer. The giant looks up calmly, as if waiting for this release. The device on his chest glows brightly as the spell is about to strike. Incredibly quickly, the giant disappears from the scene of impact. The flame hammer slams into the ground, creating a giant fiery explosion. The spell leaves a deep, smoking crater at the impact site. Squat stares in shock, not understanding how the enemy dodged. The giant shouts and asks how he was able to move so fast. Pain and Lodi exclaim in disbelief, realizing that Squat's magic has been thwarted. Strange cracks are crawling across his chest from the luminous crystal. He roars in pain as crimson lightning envelops his entire body. His hand mutates horribly, and he cries out, asking what is happening to him. He realizes with horror that his body is regenerating against his will. Pain curses, realizing that the enemies had foreseen such a cruel precaution. Squat's expression changes to one of quiet, deliberate confidence. A confident smile curls his lips as he says it's all over. He calmly explains to his surprised friends that it was part of the plan. He reveals that the true victory lies in Helia's dagger, stuck in the giant's back. Helia confirms, explaining that her dagger of invulnerability has healing powers. But she continues, explaining that she is also able to use the reverse version of this power. In reverse mode, this power destroys the body at a fundamental level. She raises her hands, displaying her deadly reverse artifact. Bright cracks cover the giant, and his body begins to disintegrate. The ugly form cracks and tears, as if about to shatter into pieces. He cries out in pain as his body shatters into countless fragments of light and dust. His last scream drags on for a long time, until he disappears completely. The giant's figure crumbles into sparks of fading ethereal energy. His last words whisper that he can finally rest in peace. Squat abruptly closes the grimoire, and the squad stands victorious on the battlefield. He rushes to Lodi, congratulating him on a job well done. Praise your friend for his courage and bravery in this difficult battle. Lodi laughs awkwardly, feeling both relieved and proud at the same time. Everyone gathers around the exhausted comrade. Mission accomplished for now. They successfully returned the huge stone barrier to the cage. Helia leans over Lodi, placing her glowing hands on his broken arm. The wound disappears instantly, and Lodi gazes in admiration at the perfect recovery. He sincerely thanks Helia, impressed by her strength and skill. Pain gently warns against abusing it, even despite the healer's abilities. Lodi looks down in embarrassment, realizing how reckless he has acted. The flashback shows the hard impact of his desperate lunge. He apologizes, explaining that he was inspired by Pain's own fighting style. Squat notes that the stone barrier is larger than he expected. Pain confirms that transporting it usually requires specialized equipment. Squat agrees seriously, pondering the new problem. He tries to use magic on the cage, but it has no effect on the stone. The crystal shines, rejecting any external interference. Squat concludes that he is hiding a special power to contain the storm. Lodi reasons that if the giant could move him, he will try too. He strains all his strength, trying to move the huge cage from its place. Pain exclaims in complete shock, not believing his friend would actually try to do this. Lodi roars, demanding that Pain grab the other side and help pull. Confused, Pain only mumbles agreement in surprise. Lodi calls for the girls to join, but Squat waves it away, considering it a futile endeavor. The combined efforts prove futile, and everyone falls to the ground exhausted and broken. Lodi sits sullenly, asking his comrades what they should do now. Pain leans over to him, dryly reminding him that he warned him about the absurdity of this. He again outlines their hopeless situation. Equipment destroyed, help far away. Lodi admits with annoyance that he hates giving up after such a journey. Helia sadly confirms the bitter truth with a silent look. Lodi turns to Squat, desperately asking if he has any kind of plan. His face freezes in surprise upon hearing his friend's unexpected proposal. Pain and Helia are surprised and ask what Squat's strange idea means. He remembers the blacksmith who dragged the stone, thereby proving the enemy's intentions. He concludes that the enemy destroyed their transport because they had their own. With a determined clench of his fist, Squat declares that they must steal it. Lodi's face shines, because his friend's sly expression seems trustworthy to him. Pain skeptically denies this, saying they would have discovered such equipment long ago. Squat counters by asking if there are any other places they haven't looked. He voices a shocking theory. The transport is hidden inside the eternal storm. A soldier named Pain brushes it off, calling it madness. Suddenly his eyes widen with an unexpected realization. He asks if the enemy can't use a barrier stone. Against the backdrop of a distant rumble, Squat points to the horizon. The entire squad looks up, alarmed by the growing sound. Dark-haired Lodi recognizes with horror the source of this menacing roar. Ahead of them, the sky is torn apart by a huge roaring whirlwind of the eternal storm. Inside the ship, the stern captain notices that the object they are tracking was carrying a rock. The subordinate reports that the target was moving a few minutes ago. The captain coldly concludes that his agent is most likely already dead. The captain clicks his tongue in irritation, calling the deceased a worthless bastard. He angrily remarks that he died without completing the work. The subordinate confirms that the mission is still accomplished. The stone has been moved. The captain indifferently adds that this man was just an experiment that must have gone wrong. He explains that the asset was a disposable tool, created to completely ignore its own security. The subordinate agrees and reports that the survivors have appeared on the screen. An image appears on the ship's main monitor, distorted by static interference. The captain's eyes narrow as he stares intently at the screen. He sees 2 adults and 2 children, noticing that one of them is signaling. The subordinate notes with concern that reinforcements are far away now. cautiously suggests calling in ground units and staying in cover. His boss coldly rejects the cautious plan with one word. The captain confidently declares that they will capture the survivors themselves. The subordinate nervously reminds him that direct contact with the enemy is against the rules. The captain reveals the true motive. The prisoners will bring them extra points. The subordinate quietly says that his blood is blue. The captain's rage flares up, and he beats the officer for his audacity in his answers. He staggers from the powerful blow. Grabbing him by the chin, the captain ominously asks about the color of his own blood. He leans closer, demanding that the subordinate name his blood. Furiously explains the rigid hierarchy of the white blood family, based on its shades. A frightened subordinate can only mumble an apology. The captain questions whether those four can even be called true enemies. He rejects them as pathetic trash, unworthy of attention. Blames his officers' cowardice for their loss of potentially valuable slaves. Closing the topic, he orders an assault squad to be prepared. Gives a strict deadline of 20 minutes to capture the group and return the stone. The subordinate transmits the order to the fighters, and they respond with coordinated Roger. A giant ship breaks free from the raging chaos of the eternal storm. The captain looks down from the deck to the ground with disdain. He notices a silhouette on the monitor and, squinting, tries to understand what he sees. He mutters contemptuously why that little brat squad is smiling at him. He suggests out loud that the boy must have gone mad with fear. On the ground, Lodi exclaims triumphantly that the enemy has finally appeared. Squat calmly explains the enemy's cunning technique, using stone barriers to move. Helia is surprised and expresses disbelief at the commander's tactical blunder. Pain agrees that it all seems too simple, and he feels trapped. On board the ship, a soldier gives the command to begin the battle. Squat quietly repeats the order, already having his own plan in action. With a confident smile, he declares that the battle is already over. He summons the Trial of Lightning, creating a huge magic circle above the ship. The captain cries out in shock, finally realizing that the boy is an artifact user. In a panic, he orders the ship's protective barrier to be activated immediately. The captain exhales with relief and mockery, seeing that the shield has withstood the blow. Lodi's squad freezes in surprise for a moment, but Squat calmly says that his move is not yet complete. The captain smiles, warning Squat not to underestimate his defense. Squat counters that it is the captain who should not underestimate him. With a sharp snap of his fingers, he activates a real trap. A second identical magic circle flashes just below the ship. The captain, in a fit of terror, realizes that he is being attacked simultaneously from below. Squat calmly watches as his flawless mat unfolds. His comrades on the ground look up, holding their breath at the sight. The soldiers inside the ship look up with wide eyes, trembling with fear. They realize with horror that the barrier will not be able to open in time to save them. The lightning ship crashes, enveloping the ship in devastating energy. The spell rips apart the ship's innards, striking the soldiers with electrical flashes. In the silence after the explosion, the squad looks at the smoky, captured ship. Helia, swallowing nervously, cautiously asks if it's really over. Squat turns around with a confident smile, confirming that the fight is over. He explains that he used a non-lethal discharge to immobilize the soldiers for interrogation. He admits that he is disappointed with the quick end of the fight because he had other plans. Friends laugh, admitting that this over-preparedness is entirely in Squat's style. Squat watches as his plan to capture the ship successfully comes to an end. Lodi throws a huge bandaged bale of unconscious soldiers to the ground. Suddenly, Helia exclaims in alarm, ordering him to stop. Lodi proudly shows off tightly bound bodies, offering to wrap them even tighter. He lifts a huge pile of bodies above his head to show his friends. Helia, with a gloomy expression, reports the cruel truth. All the prisoners are dead. Lodi screams in complete shock, his face filled with disbelief. He denies it, reminding them that Squat clearly said they only fainted. Payne points to the metal collars fastened around their necks. He concludes that the poison worked when he lost consciousness. This was a cruel preventive mechanism to prevent their interrogation. Squat and Payne agree that such cruelty is typical of the white blood family. Lodi's face hardens with determination. They are dealing with their worst enemy. The friends look grimly at the dead, and Payne remarks that their fate is pitiful. Squat urges them to move on, for the eternal storm is already ahead of them. In the cockpit, Payne struggles unsuccessfully with the controls, so Squat offers to take the helm. The ship's engines roar powerfully, coming to life with a sharp jolt. When the ship starts moving, Squat says that he has more or less figured out the controls. From outside, a huge crane on board the ship is activated with a roar. His arrow extends, lifting a cage with a stone barrier from the ground. Lodi watches from below in admiration, finding this large swinging cage incredibly cool. The cage is securely fastened to the ship, and the stone is successfully returned. Payne announces that he will call the editing crew while they head to the village. In the cockpit, Lodi celebrates his success with a smiling Squat. He joyfully exclaims that now they will be able to save his mother and the village. Arriving in the village, they prepare to install the stone in the designated place. The burly workers of the assembly team activate their artifacts, preparing for the hard work. Friends watch with admiration as they deftly carry a huge stone. With a powerful jerk, the installation crew lifts the giant stone barrier into place. The colossal crystal shines proudly in its ornate cradle, the installation complete. A scarred man named Pain places his hand on the base, commanding the stone to activate. The cradle mechanism begins to hum and spin, gathering enormous energy. A powerful flash of light bursts from the stone, a sign of its activation. The five stand together, celebrating the successful completion of a mission to save the village. Lodi sighs with relief and Squat ponders the stone's future safety. Squat then turns to Lodi, asking what it's like to accomplish such a difficult task. Pain smiles warmly, admitting that working together to save people feels good. Lodi tells Squat that he looks forward to his future achievements with the organization. Their mother approaches them, happily announcing that now the boys can go without worry. A stunned Lodi tries to stop her from talking so lightly about their departure. She suddenly pulls both surprised sons into a strong, loving embrace. Holding them close to her, she says with deep feeling that her sons are her pride. A close-up shows her confident, proud smile in this moment of tenderness. She says they are the best, and now they have to prove it to the world. Tears appear in Lodi's eyes. He squeezes his mother's hand tightly, moved by her words. Squat watches, his reserved expression softened by the sense of her faith in them. Pain and a young woman in a medical uniform quietly contemplate an emotional farewell. The bald officer interrupts the moment, politely asking Pain to talk. Pain turns around in surprise and asks what's wrong. The officer points to the captured airship, asking how Pain managed to move it. He holds up a thick manual, explaining that it would take days to read. Pain turns to Squat, asking how he managed to control the ship after a quick glance. Squat calmly replies that he has read the entire manual. Pain is stunned, exclaiming that Squat's reading speed is incredible. Squat clarifies that it is enough to use the table of contents to find the necessary sections. He then offers to teach the two stunned officers how to pilot this unique ship. The officers readily and gratefully accept his offer. The boy's mother tells Pain that she will look after them, and he should keep them in strict work. With a confident smile, the mother tells them to show the eternal storm who's boss. The boys freeze, comprehending the power of her parting words. Together they announce that they are leaving, ready for a new journey. The mother adds that she will now return to her work in the village. On board, Squat begins teaching two officers the basics of ship control. The airship's engines roar to life, preparing for takeoff. Squat explains that he has already given the main knowledge, and they will leave soon. Lodi leans over the railing, saying quietly that he's not really that sad. Squat asks if he really misses leaving his home so little. Lodi suddenly calls out joyfully to his friend to get his attention. He points down to where a huge crowd of villagers has gathered to see them off. The boys wave goodbye, promising to do their best as the ship begins to rise. The villagers wave their hands vigorously in response, sending the rumbling airship off. Thoughts arise that blacksmiths, having entered into a contract with the line of force, gain eternal life. The mother watches them depart, thinking that she will always be there. She hopes they can return home whenever they want. The airship rises into the sky, roaring, and leaves the village behind. On board, Pain announces that after entering the training institute, their destination will be headquarters. The guys are surprised and ask what kind of educational institute this is. A young woman in a medical cap explains that this is a school for young users of combat artifacts. Pain adds that working in an organization requires a large amount of knowledge. Lodi is terrified of the prospect of studying, and Squat asks if it's possible to skip a few courses. It is confirmed that the best students do not necessarily stay for the full term. Squat turns to Lodi with a determined smile, stating that they must finish as soon as possible. Lodi agrees reluctantly, the expression on his face showing that he is not thrilled. He admits his weakness in studies, but decides to do everything for the common goal. The airship lands on a desolate and barren land under a crescent moon. The unique ship rumbles as it moves across wide empty spaces. Their winged airship continues its journey, now gliding over a wooded area. The engines roar as the ship moves through the dark night forest. As the sun rises, the ship emerges from the forest, approaching a distant city. Squat and a girl in a medical uniform look out the window, noticing that the target is already in sight. Squat turns to say something to Lodi. He finds his friend fast asleep in a chair, snoring loudly. Squat points forward, urging the sleepy Lodi to look ahead. Lodi mumbles that he wants 5 more minutes of sleep. Losing patience, Squat pulls his cheek, forcing him to wake up. Lodi rubs his eyes sleepily, wondering what lies ahead. Suddenly his eyes open wide in surprise. Through the ship's window, he sees a majestic city crowned by a castle. Lodi is delighted to see the giant city of Teal, the organization's headquarters. Pain confirms that a dorm room has already been prepared for the boys. The airship lands in a courtyard surrounded by the mighty city walls. Pain hands over his duties, saying he will go to report on the mission accomplished. The bald officer pats the boys on the head in a friendly manner. congratulating them on their great success. He thanks Squat for the piloting lesson and looks forward to their future accomplishments. Pain leads the group onward, having already made arrangements with the training institute. They walk through the busy streets, Lodi looking around in amazement. He enthusiastically points out the many people and shops he has never seen before. Squat tells the shocked Lodi that he can admire it later. Pain looks up at the majestic stone building, saying that it is exactly as he imagined. He smiles as he prepares to officially announce their arrival at the institute. Lodi and Squat stand in front of the goal in their new uniforms. Helia praises their appearance, and Squat guesses that there will be an exam now. Lodi protests in surprise that they just joined and got their uniforms. Helia explains that the entrance test will divide them into classes A, B, or C. Lodi worries that because of his poor academic performance, they will end up in different classes. Pain reassures that the test is more focused on combat skills. A stern examiner wearing glasses announces the start of the written test. In the exam hall, Lodi is nervous, while Squat looks confidently prepared. The examiner flips the hourglass, officially starting the test. Lodi clutches his pen, his face tense with concentration. Squat holds his pen calmly, staring intently at the task. He confidently begins to write, while Lodi freezes, not knowing where to start. While Squat continuously prints lines, Lodi panics and searches for some kind of answer. He scratches his head in confusion, still not having written a single word. In a fit of irritation, the pen breaks right in his hand. The sand in the clock runs out, and the examiner announces the end of time. Lodi sits hunched over at his desk, admitting that he didn't know any answers. From behind the door, Pain and Helia note with regret that the boys had a hard time. Squat asks the examiner how many points are needed for the highest class, learning about the bar of 160. With a determined look, he promises to score a perfect 100 on the practical exam. The examiner is amused by his confidence and enthusiasm. She reports that no one has ever scored more than 80 points on the practical part. Leaving the audience, she wishes the boys good luck in the test. Lodi clenches his fist, determined to give it his all in a practical fight. Before the committee of teachers, the boys learn that their opponent will be a storm spirit. The teacher with the monocle advises to be careful in this duel. Squat points to his companion, asking if the two of them can fight the creature. The teacher laughs, agreeing that many abilities are not suitable for single combat. He encourages you to show all your strength, because you can get points even without fighting. In a huge arena, he announces the official start of the practical exam. The teacher orders the guys to come forward and activate their artifacts. In the stands, Pain and Helia take their seats, preparing to watch the fight. Lodi and Squat look up at the teachers, focused and ready. Squat calmly activates his grimoire of ends, and the book flashes with magical light. Lodi ignites his blade of beginnings, the swords glow with energy. Squat advises his impatient friend not to rush. He is sure that an extremely dangerous opponent will appear now. The heavy iron gates swing open with a thud, announcing the arrival of the enemy. Lodi and Squat stare in shock at the creature emerging from the darkness. They immediately recognize her as Rock Trouble, a spirit with a will of its own. Squat confidently tells the surprised examiner that they already know who it is. The teacher with the monocle is impressed that the boys prepared well for the exam, but he warns that knowledge is not the same as encountering the real power of a being. The guys discuss the golem's ability to regenerate, a major problem for anyone. Squat lays out a plan. Lodi will cut down the enemy and he will prepare a magical attack. He asks if Lodi can circle around the creature to prepare for the strike, adds a warning that smaller size can make the enemy even faster. Lodi exclaims that he understands and quickly rushes into the attack. A moment later, Lodi disappears from view, stunning the golem. The teachers on the balcony exclaim in surprise, trying to understand where the boy has disappeared to. Rock Dread roars and rushes forward at breakneck speed. A huge fist slams into the ground where Lodi had just stood. He appears behind this monster, skillfully dodging the blow. With one powerful blow, the giant crumbles into a pile of stones. The teacher with the monocle is so shocked that he drops his teacup. Squat calmly advises his friend not to relax. Standing over the wreckage, he declares that the real battle is just beginning. Smiling defiantly, Squat calls on the golem to recover. Both of them wait for the creature's next move, their eyes fixed on the pile of stones. The stones begin to roll and merge, obeying an invisible force. The magic circle that Squat drew on the ground ignites, controlling regeneration. Pain smiles in the stands, asking his colleagues if they even noticed the attack. He explains that Lodi strengthened the body with his artifact to deliver a decisive blow. The teacher with the monocle repeats what he heard, still not believing in such power. The other students marvel at Lodi's speed, finding it hard to believe that he overcame the creature. One of the examiners notes that the real Rock of Doom is being restored, but this one is not. He thoughtfully asks why this pseudo-cursed spirit cannot put the body back together. Squat explains that pseudo-spirits do not have the complex properties inherent in real ones. He adds that they know this because they have already fought the real Rock of Doom once. Pain smiles, confirming to Helia that they really defeated that creature. The examiner with the monocle waves it away, not believing that 2 children are capable of such a thing. Lodi runs to the booth, feverishly asking about his test score. Squat adds his own complaint, saying the exam was over before he could do anything. The confused examiners only mumble that they will send them another opponent. They officially decide to release a second monster for testing. A flashback shows Squat snapping his fingers as he begins his practical exam. A powerful explosion instantly destroys his opponent with a series of fiery strikes. The students watching his test were amazed at the scale of the destruction. The exam ended almost immediately, leaving only a smoking crater in its wake. Back in the present, the teacher with the monocle spits out his tea in shock. The boys lean forward, again demanding to say how many points they got. The confused instructor wipes the sweat from his forehead, not knowing what to answer. Helia laughs quietly, realizing that the examiners will have a hard time evaluating this fight. The new chapter begins with a scene of a festive feast. On the table is deliciously browned chicken and freshly baked bread. The company's bustling restaurant offers a full meal after exams are over. A close-up shows a shiny plate of fresh fruit and sweets. Pain solemnly announces that the banquet is in honor of their successful enrollment. Helia explains that they are leaving soon, but hopes to work together someday. The mood at the table suddenly becomes heavier, which surprises Squat. Lodi quietly thanks Helia, thinking that they won't be meeting anytime soon. He sharply hits his forehead on the table, dramatically exclaiming that his life is over. Helia tries to cheer up a distraught Lodi, reminding him that this is just the beginning. Pain offers to cheer him up with dessert, praising the local pastries. Lodi, horrified, imagines that Pain's words are hinting at a 0 score for the exam. Pain quickly explains that he was giving an example and did not mean its result. Then he turns to Squat, wondering what he's doing now. Squat says he borrowed books from the library to learn more about the organization. He admires the academy's vast funds, and is sure that he will not be bored here. Pain grumbles displeasedly that Squat has taken up studying during the holiday meal. Squat shares a discovery. Twice a year they give you a chance to improve your class. Pain explains that the main way is through the annual promotion exam. Interested, Lodi asks what other way to move up the ranks is. Squat tells the story of an annual competition between classes. Pain confirms that defeating the upperclassmen qualifies one to take the promotion exam. Squat asks if there are any drawbacks to this method of competition. Helia explains that sensational victories are rare due to the huge gap in power. Squat concludes that in team battles, weaker classmates become a burden. He concludes that it all depends on luck and receives a favorable prediction. His mention of Class E instantly sends Lodi into a panic about his own distribution. Squat quickly reassures his comrade that it was just a hypothetical assumption. Helium raises the question of how long it will take to rise from Class E to A. Lodi says even the talented ones need at least 3 years. Pain clarifies that there are 4 promotions to go through, and that takes a lot of time. Squat asks if he can immediately get a chance to take the exam after defeating Class A. A bold question makes everyone freeze in silence. Helia and Pain reject this idea, arguing that Class E will not overcome Class A. A silhouette illustration of the extremely strong and outstanding students of Class A appears. Squat gives Lodi 6 months to master the written exam. He hesitantly agrees. Lodi is impressed by the intelligence of Class A, but Squat clarifies that it is about narrow knowledge. Holding a sandwich, Lodi reluctantly accepts a difficult academic challenge. The short notice shocks Lodi. He screams in despair and drops his food. Squat outlines an ambitious plan to learn the entire Class A program in half a year. Elder Pain tries to intervene, asking them to stop and listen to him. He firmly states that it is simply impossible to beat Class A. Squat only smiles slyly, promising victory by any tactical means. Sighing, Pain realizes that he's not listening to him, and advises him to just enjoy school life. Squat passionately declares that their main goal is to stop the eternal storm, so there is no time to waste. He then turns to his friend, asking Lodi to confirm his faith in their powers. Lodi pauses for a moment, seriously considering his answer. Inspired by his friend's conviction, he resolutely declares that he feels within himself the strength to succeed. Senior Helia, intrigued, asks Squat if he wants to become a researcher. Squat firmly denies, revealing his true goal: to become an independent officer in an armed battalion. This stuns the elders, and Lodi amusingly asks what the title means. Pain explains that such officers have the authority of an entire battalion and enormous freedom of action. Helia adds that there are only 20 of them, and they are all warriors of incredible strength. Pain understands why Squat is so fixated on Class A. Squat explains to a surprised Lodi that Class A has a special graduation quota, but their elders warn that this path will be extremely difficult. Lodi confidently states that they won't know their potential until they try. He smiles at his friend, waiting for his confident confirmation. Squat agrees with a smile, saying he couldn't have said it better himself. Forgetting his sadness, Lodi starts eating again, promising to try his best. Helia smiles warmly, pleased that his mood has lifted. Pain quietly tells her that these two prodigies might actually be able to achieve their goal. Helia gently agrees, admitting that it is entirely possible. The festive meal ends with humorous arguments over the food as they leave the restaurant. That night, Lodi is delighted with the comfort of the new beds in the dorm. In the room, Lodi covers herself with a blanket, while Squat reads by candlelight. Unable to calm down, Lodi tosses and turns in bed. He tells Squat that he's not bothered by the light. He's just too excited to sleep. However, within a few minutes, excitement gives way to fatigue, and he falls asleep, snoring loudly. In the morning, the boys stand in front of the majestic academy building. Heavy double doors open, inviting them into the principal's office. They stop in front of a large table, next to which stands the principal and stern teachers. The long-bearded headmaster officially welcomes 2 new students to his academy. A close-up shows his serious, thoughtful, and authoritative face. Lodi, standing tensely, confesses to his calm companion that this situation makes him incredibly nervous. Squat leans over and whispers something in the stunned Lodi's ear. He says he stayed up all night studying the academy's students. With a cheeky smile, Squat declares that his research has provided a clear plan of action. The principal begins the official procedure of determining their class based on the results of the exams. Squat politely interrupts, causing a real shock in Lodi. The director stops, interested in such an intervention, and asks what he means. Lodi looks at his friend in complete amazement, not understanding his bold move. Squat stuns everyone by announcing that they want to get into Class E. The entire faculty, including the principal, reacts with a collective look of surprise. The director's mouth involuntarily opens, completely losing his usual restraint. Lodi's face is contorted in almost insane surprise at his friend's choice. He turns to Squat, screaming in disbelief about their place in Class E. Squat calmly refers to the school's rule that allows him to choose a lower class. The director strokes his beard, silently contemplating the unexpected situation. He confirms that Squat is right, but asks if they are truly sure of their choice. The Squat stands its ground, and it turns out that their scores are the highest in the school's history. He calmly assesses his result, assuming that he scored about 89 points for the written part. The director confirms that his assessment was absolutely accurate, exactly 89 points. A slight disappointment appears on Squat's face due to the lack of a perfect result. Teachers clarify that he lost points only in the history section. Unsure, Lodi shyly asks to name his result. He is stunned to learn that his scores are also recognized as outstanding. The principal reveals that Lodi received a perfect 100 for the practice, and 52 for the written portion. They explain that he achieved such success thanks to the answers he guessed in a multiple-choice test. Both Lodi and Squat are surprised by how well he did the written part. Lodi scratches the back of his head with a guilty smile, admitting that it was pure intuition. The director wisely notes that for a weapons user, good intuition is a key trait. He confirms that Lodi's result is quite sufficient to get into the prestigious B class. Lodi's eyes shine with joy and pride upon hearing this news. The director freezes for a moment, pausing thoughtfully. Lodi logically assumes that Squat's high scores will secure him a spot in Class A. The director confirms that this is indeed the case. This only deepens Lodi's confusion, and he asks why they want to go to Class E then. Squat insists that for their goal, starting in Class E is actually a faster path. Lodi is completely confused by such an illogical explanation. With a confident smile, Squat leans in and asks his friend to just trust him. Lodi freezes for a moment, trying to comprehend his comrade's strange arguments. His face is completely confused, as if question marks are hovering around him. Despite the misunderstanding, Lodi eventually trusts his friend and demands that they be sent to Class E. The teachers freeze, stunned by the unprecedented and strange request. One of the employees quietly asks the director if this is even allowed. Standing at the table, she notes that this is the first time this situation has happened. The principal begins to sort through a pile of student files, thinking about Class E. He notices that this year there is a student in Class E named Lumia Chasu. One of the teachers mockingly remarks that Lumia is a disappointment, despite her rare ability. The director continues to leaf through the files, lost in deep thought. Suddenly he freezes, stopping the pages. A glint appears in his eyes, and he says quietly that he might have an idea. Laying out several cases for Lodi and Squat, he begins to formulate a plan. The director looks up from his papers. A sly, calculated smile appears on his face. He adds Lumia's case to theirs, seeing potential in this combination. With a smile, he reflects that this year's interclass competition promises to be interesting. A new chapter begins. The boys are led down a sunny corridor by another student. The newbie with the round haircut gets confused in his words and mistakenly calls himself Lodi. Lodi, pointing to his silent companion, introduces him as Squat. After that, Lodi smiles awkwardly at the strange exchange. The guy adjusts his glasses and is correctly called Peril. Lodi thanks Beryl for the tour, but he brushes it off, saying it's his duty. Beryl explains that as the class president, he is responsible for meeting and guiding new students. The stern-looking student explains that the strongest in each class becomes its leader. He clarifies that the leader must unite the class for a competition that will take place in 6 months. He pauses dramatically, emphasizing the importance of what he said. In an authoritative tone, he announces that his orders must be obeyed without question. Lodi looks surprised when asked if he understood this rule. He hesitantly agrees, a bead of sweat on his face. Then he quietly tells Squat that leaders must be truly incredible people. The conductor leads them down a luxurious corridor, announcing that their class is ahead. The ornate classroom door opens with a heavy creak. The guide steps inside, ordering the students to sit down, and the newcomers follow him. The commotion in the classroom subsides when he announces the 2 new students for Class E. Lodi and Squat stand in front of the class, preparing to present. The guide begins to introduce them, but is abruptly interrupted by someone's voice. One of the students notices that the dustboard still hasn't been wiped clean. The voice demands an explanation of what the person responsible for this was doing. A girl named Lumia, holding a broom, apologizes embarrassedly, and Squat recognizes her. The entire class watches as Lumia is publicly humiliated at the blackboard. She is told to act without reminders and not wait for instructions. Another student asks if she replaced the soap, and she apologizes again. The guy contemptuously says that she is of no use no matter what she does. Lumia looks down, her face filled with humiliation. When Lodi is about to intervene, the guide stops him, stating that it is her job. He cruelly adds that such work is suitable for the weakest student. Squat and Lodi watch, and a serious, thoughtful expression appears on Squat's face. The guide advises them to focus on their own strength and leave small matters to the weak. Lodi wants to object, but the guide continues his speech. He says it's better to let go of useless feelings like regret, proclaims that outstanding people join a barrier organization and change the world. Lodi quietly ponders the idea that talented students' time is more valuable. Squat's gaze hardens as he ponders the words about the time of the inferiors. Lumia clutches the book in her hand, feeling the weight of resentment. Squat concludes the book sharply by questioning the very definition of a weak learner. He calmly states that, according to his observations, Lumia is the 3rd most powerful in this class. Lodi says that sounds harsh, and the guide freezes in shock. The class erupts in a hush, impressed by Squat's bold words. Lumia looks up, not believing what she just heard. The conductor mockingly demands that this impudent and insulting statement be repeated. Squat adds with a self-confident smile that he and Lodi are the 1st and 2nd. The leader's worldview shatters when he realizes he is only being placed 4th. He utters Squat's name in confusion, stunned by the new reality. Inside, he doubts whether these newcomers can truly be stronger than him. His rage grows at the thought that he is inferior to the worthless Lumia. A vein stands out on his forehead as he sarcastically calls Squat's words interesting. Lodi whispers to Squat that the guide is clearly angry about this rating. Squat watches calmly, believing he delivered the news very gently. The guide screams silently in pure, uncontrollable rage. He clutches his chest, breathing heavily, trying to control himself. Pushing his glasses up, he tries to regain composure and drops the subject. He contemptuously says that Squat doesn't know anything yet and can't judge. In a flash of anger, he declares that he is sure of Squat's weakness. Squat cold-bloodedly proposes a fight to find out who is really weaker. The rumor about the duel spreads instantly. The students wonder if the newcomer will survive. A crowd of students follows them to the arena. Lodi sighs, scratching his head, and worries if they'll be able to get along after this. He watches with anxiety as the tension between them grows. Lumia approaches and, apologizing, takes the blame for the fight on herself. Lodi immediately dismisses her words, telling her not to worry. She admits that she is afraid for Squat, because no one can defeat the leader. Lodi clenches his fist, assuring him that Squat is incredibly strong. He says with complete confidence that Squat never starts a fight he can't win. Lumia watches, her gaze mixing hope and a shadow of doubt. In the arena, the rivals stand opposite each other, surrounded by spectators. The guide gives Squat one last chance to politely apologize for what he said. With a smug smile, he asks if Squat is ready for a duel. Squat calmly clarifies whether it will be a one-on-one fight. The leader takes this as a sign of fear of fighting without support. He begins to teach that at the academy, they teach you to always fight at full strength. Squat interrupts, explaining that he was asking about his opponent, not himself. The guide is momentarily lost at such an unexpected answer. His face contorts with rage as he realizes that Squat doesn't know his place. Squat notes that if the policy is to fight to the fullest, he will gladly comply. A powerful aura explodes around the conductor, cracking the ground beneath his feet. He can barely contain his unbridled, uncontrolled anger. All his muscles are tense, his body trembles with overflowing strength. Breathing heavily, he clenches his fists, trying to calm himself. Taking a deep breath, he mutters to himself to control himself before unleashing all his power. Having regained some of his self-control, he promises to show Squat the difference in their powers. The guide activates his weapon, the Willow Fire Talisman. At the same time, Squat calmly summons his grimoire, the Book of Completions. The conductor joins his palms with a thud, completing a powerful spell. A roaring stream of fire bursts from it, rushing across the arena. The hellish flames are directed straight at Squat, who doesn't even move. Lodi and Lumia shout in panic, while Squat calmly prepares his defense. A glowing magical barrier grows in front of him, rumbling and holding back the flames. The guide is surprised to recognize the enemy weapon as a barrier type. He mockingly asks how long Squat thinks this defense will last. Squat calmly notes that the flames are indeed very powerful. The guide smiles wryly, certain that his opponent has finally realized the danger. Squat notes that his opponent was hitting with such force from the very beginning. The guide boasts that he has memorized them all and asks if Squat knows his ability. Squat accurately determines that his opponent gets stronger when he remains still. Lodi and Lumia are amazed that he knows his opponent's abilities so well. The guide sneers that Squat, knowing this, did not prepare a countermeasure. The flames become even more powerful, hitting the barrier furiously. Squat agrees. He hasn't prepared any countermeasures. He explains that protection is only needed from those who can lose. The guide furiously asks where this unfounded self-confidence comes from. He releases even more power, expanding the burning wave. Lodi and Lumia flinch from the growing firestorm. The flames with a deafening roar hit the barrier, pushing it to the limit. Surrounded by a whirlwind of fire, Peril mockingly advises Squat to surrender, lest he become coal. The students watch in amazement as the giant flame and its deadly threat. Lumia says with anxiety that this battle could end in disaster. Lodi, on the contrary, is fascinated by the incredible power of magic. Lumia tries to break him out of his stupor, but he only responds with a nod. Lodi shouts across the arena that their classmates are already seriously worried. Squat turns his head slightly, taking in the words with cold curiosity. Admitting that he was interested in testing the limits of the flame, he decides to end the fight by activating his own magic. Peril, shocked, asks how Squat can hold multiple magical barriers at once. Coming to his senses, he sneers that even 2 defenses won't save him. Peril suddenly remembers something, and the thought breaks his concentration. Squat reminds them that the duel was to show the difference in their strength. Standing inside a huge magic circle, he says that this difference is now obvious. The light of the incredible spell reflects off Peril's glasses, his eyes wide open. He looks up in horror, trying to understand the nature of this spell. He notices that the circle pattern is completely different from the previous barrier. Lodi and Lumia scream, begging Squat not to release such power. Squat calmly announces the activation of his own barrier, preparing to strike back. A giant stream of fire bursts outward, and Peril screams in horror, recognizing his own power in the flames. The students scream in panic as the fiery beast swiftly pounces on the helpless Peril. Peril is completely engulfed in flames, letting out a final scream of pain before the fire engulfs him. He falls to his knees, clutching his head in terror and pain, screaming uncontrollably. Suddenly the scream cuts off. Peril looks up in confusion as the pain suddenly subsides. He sees a shimmering barrier around him, and wonders whose magic saved him. The students watching the fight are equally shocked and confused by this sudden turn of events. With a light snap of his fingers, Squat explains that he couldn't kill the valuable resource. The protective barrier disappears, leaving Peril on his knees, broken and defeated. Peril, staring into space, quietly asks what he should do now, having lost all words. Squat, standing in the center of the fading magic circle, asks if he wants to continue the fight. Peril throws up his hands in despair, shouting that he categorically refuses. A commotion begins among the students. Everyone remembers that the strongest person in the class becomes its leader. A confident, triumphant smile blooms on Squat's face as he prepares to claim his rights. Lodi tells Lumia that Squat is making his sly face again, which portends a devious plan. Squat looks around the class with a sly smile, asking if anyone objects to his leadership. He officially declares himself the new class president, addressing his classmates. As he repeats the question, a hand flies up from the crowd. Lodi proudly declares that he is the one denying it, surprising everyone present. Squat recognizes that the rule about the strongest leader is true. Lodi points out that he and she have never determined who is stronger between the two of them. 2 friends stand opposite each other, and an unexpected challenge hangs in the air. With a weary sigh, Squat asks if Lodi really wants to be headman. Lodi is confused, admitting that he didn't even think about it when he made the challenge. Lumia jokes that now he will have to be ready to take responsibility. Later, the students gather in the classroom, beginning a new phase under new leadership. Squat stands behind the lectern, attracting attention to continue the acquaintance. He calls himself Squat, the new leader, and greets everyone politely. Lodi introduces himself awkwardly, scratching the back of his head with a friendly smile. Squat announces that, although it's unexpected, he has already decided on a new goal for their class. Beryl and another student whisper, trying to understand what is being said. Two girls whisper to each other, confirming that he really said the goal of our class. With unwavering confidence, Squat announces that Class E will win the upcoming inter-class competition. There is a collective gasp of shock in the class. No one believes such a bold statement. Beryl jumps up, exclaiming that this is impossible, and demands an explanation. Squat calmly retorts that as a leader he decides what is possible and what is not. Beryl is stunned, covered in sweat, and speechless before his unwavering power. Squat asks the class if they don't want to win, because there's still a chance. The students agree that they want to, but some consider it a pipe dream, while Lodi expresses full support. Squat points at Lodi, ordering him to bring his academic performance up to A level. Lodi, nervously but resolutely, salutes, feeling immense pressure. Lumia watches silently, contemplating this ambitious plan. Squat pulls out a thick stack of papers, revealing individual training plans for everyone. The students surround his table, wondering how he managed to get all this ready. On the training ground under a light cloudy sky, students begin new exercises. A girl practices magic, accidentally hitting a classmate who screams in surprise. She sincerely apologizes, admitting that she completely ruined the spell. Two students discuss the new leader while others train and spar around them. One of them is surprised that Squat is stronger than Beryl and asks why such a fighter is in Class E. Another doubts whether they can beat Class A, calling the idea crazy. His friend notes that the training shows Squat's deep knowledge of everyone. This thought awakens a spark of hope, and he admits that the leader's determination makes one believe. Everyone agrees that at least the competition will definitely be interesting. Squat gathers Lodi and Lumia to assess their skills before their personal training session. He declares that the key to victory lies in one of them. He returns to Lumia, announcing that she is the team's main trump card. Lumia and Lodi are stunned, and the girl points at herself with complete incomprehension. Squat confirms that her power makes objects temporarily unbreakable, but she begins to deny it. With a dejected look, Lumia admits that this is how her ability works. She explains the limitations. The effect only lasts 6 seconds and doesn't recur on the same object. He adds that reuse on the same object is only possible after an hour. Lodi suggests a simple solution: wear multiple layers of clothing for extra protection. Lumia looks down awkwardly, admitting that she has already tried this unsuccessful method. She explains that he blocks the blows, but her clothes tear afterwards, making her blush, and Lodi apologizes. She adds in despair that, as everyone said, her power is completely useless. Squat decisively interrupts her pessimism, telling her not to give up on her ability so quickly. He holds out a coiled wire, suggesting they try using it. Lodi and Lumia look at the object in surprise, wondering if it's just a regular rope. Squat clarifies that it is a metal wire made of intertwined threads that will make Lumia unbreakable. He orders Lodi to take his artifact and properly test the wire. Squat asks Lodi if he can break this metal wire with his strength. After examining the wire, Lodi admits that he would probably never be able to do it normally. However, he adds that by using the artifact to strengthen his body, he will have a chance. With a powerful roar, Lodi tenses up and tears the wire, stunning Lumia with his strength. Squat confirms that wire can be broken if such force is applied. He then turns to Lumia, asking if she can strengthen the wire with her power. Lumia squeezes the time pendant with concentration, activating the artifact with quiet determination. A huge dial appears behind her, and she declares her readiness to begin the inspection. Squat orders Lodi to pull the enchanted wire with all his might. Lodi tenses up, counting from 5 as he pulls the wire. He continues the countdown, his face contorted with tension, and reaches 3. On 1, his whole body trembles from the effort, but the wire remains intact. Only a thin metal thread breaks with a crack. Lodi is relieved to tell Lumia that he really couldn't break the wire. Squat explains that even a strong enemy will have a hard time cutting this unbreakable wire. 6 seconds of immobility in combat, he emphasizes, is a death sentence. Impressed, Lodi enthusiastically praises Lumia, calling her strength incredible. Ashamed, Lumia quietly asks if her ability is really that valuable. Lodi enthusiastically suggests another experiment. They approach a giant stone that they use to practice combat magic. One of the students confirms that the stone is so strong that even magic cannot destroy it. Squat lifts a simple rope, announcing that it will be their only tool for the test. The plan is ready. Lodi should wrap the rope around it and pull while Lumia strengthens it. Squat asks if Lumia is ready, and Lodi activates his artifact with a roar. With a glowing dial behind her, Lumia announces the start of the experiment. Lodi rushes forward, leaving a blurred trail behind him, holding the enchanted rope. The sudden lack of tension causes him to stop in mid-motion in surprise. He stops, not understanding why the rope is not providing any resistance. His footsteps fall silent on the grass as he tries to make sense of the unexpected situation. Lodi looks at the slack rope in his hands, his muscles tense. He looks back at the rock, assuming the rope broke somewhere in the middle. Embarrassed, Lumia believes she has failed and awkwardly apologizes. A deep crack appears on the surface of the giant stone, and it begins to wobble. The stone splits with a deafening roar, the upper part falling to the ground. Lodi looks on in amazement at the destruction caused by a simple rope. He excitedly exclaims that he thought about breaking when the rope suddenly went slack. Squat admits that such power exceeds all his expectations. Lumia is shocked and admits that she never imagined such a use of her power. Squat explains that collaboration can create effects that are hard to even imagine. His words resonate with Lumia when he adds that there are no useless artifacts. A sudden rustling in the bushes makes the trio jump. A fourth student appears, holding someone with a spool of thread by the collar. The one caught falls with a muffled groan of pain. Beryl appears from the bushes, irritably demanding an explanation. The student with the ponytail asks if he was trying to spy. Beryl indignantly denies, calling the accusations gross. He awkwardly makes excuses, saying he was just observing the experiment. Squat turns to Lumia, who shuddering quickly replies, "Yes!" He calmly says she did great, leaving her and Lodi confused. Beryl condescendingly admits that his idea of her weakness was partly wrong. He struggles to find the words to express his reluctant confession. With great effort, Beryl finally tries to apologize. A blushing Beryl finally blurts out a sincere apology. The trio, Lodi, Lumia, and Squat, look at him with complete incomprehension. A single tear rolls down Lumia's cheek as she realizes the moment. Overwhelmed with emotion, she begins to cry profusely. A frightened Lodi rushes to her, asking if everything is okay. She admits that she always thought she was useless, but now believes she can help. Lodi encourages her, urging her to believe more in her incredible strength. Squat steps on Beryl's foot when he tries to make a condescending comment. He informs Lumia that she has a special training session ahead of the competition. Lumia listens intently, a bead of sweat standing out on her forehead. With a determined smile, she agrees, while also asking why he stepped on Beryl's foot. The group shares a moment of camaraderie, vowing to do their best together. Squat watches his friends carefully, thoughtful. He realizes that Lumia misjudges her power and even her name. He decides that she must discover her true ability herself. 6 months later, Lodi admits that he is nervous before the competition. He eagerly asks Squat about the plan they are going to use. Another student expresses concern that Lumia has only been training for 6 months. Squat cryptically tells Lodi that they will discuss strategy right now. Lodi looks at him with wide eyes, full of questions. He wonders why strategy is only discussed before the competition itself. Squat gathers everyone, announcing an exhibition fight with a 60% strength limit. Lodi is surprised by this, but hesitantly agrees to the terms. The title of the section, Exhibition Fight, appears in the background of a montage of their training. The classroom doors open and Squat calls everyone to attention. Standing behind the lectern, he praises them for their hard training. Lumia listens attentively, her gaze focused and serious. Lodi clenches his fists, agreeing that everyone gave it their all. Beryl listens with a haughty but attentive smile. The other students sit with focused and determined faces. Classmates look ahead, their faces a mixture of anticipation and seriousness. Squat smiles, jokingly teasing Lodi that now he definitely won't fail the written exam. Confused, Lodi stammers, saying that he'll probably manage. Beryl acknowledges their hard work but doubts they will win over Class A. The class laughs, and one student says that at least he has moral support. Squat announces that the last class will be the final exhibition fight. Lodi begins to explain the distribution of teams for the battle. He reveals that he, Squat, and Lumia will be on the same team against everyone else. Lumia exclaims in shock, amazed at the odds in a 3-on-3 format. Beryl indignantly asks if Squat really meant it. Squat calmly confirms that he is quite serious. He explains that he wants everyone to use all the skills they have acquired. He announces that the fight will take place in the Cage of Immortality, which surprises Lodi. Squat explains that this cage prevents fatal injuries by driving fighters off the battlefield. Lumia realizes that this allows her to fight at full strength. Squat looks at Lumia, his face becoming serious. He says that to win, she must discover the true nature of her power. Lumia is skeptical because she has only been repeating the same workout for 6 months. Beryl notes that she has become very quick at activating her ability. She admits that she is simply following Squat's orders. Inside, she vows to herself to become faster and stronger than ever. Squat confidently says that she will discover what her true strength is. Lumia looks at him with a mix of doubt and hope. The scene shifts to the large arched courtyard of the academy. The two teams meet for a final strategy discussion. The Squat Trinity steps out against the rest of the class, asking if everyone is ready. The larger team stands ready, with grim and determined faces. Squat, Lodi, and Lumia stand side by side, ready for the challenge. Squat's voice echoes, announcing the start of the showdown. A powerful burst of energy rolls through the courtyard as each student activates their artifact. A serious student wearing glasses encourages his team, shouting for everyone to stick to the plan. Within a dense, roaring energy barrier, Beryl concentrates incredible flame magic. The observer explains the tactics. A sturdy small barrier protects Beryl's flames while they gain strength. Next to the girl, a determined Lodi announces the start of his team's attack. He jumps up, a confident smile on his face. It closes the distance in an instant, stunning opponents with its speed. The enemy team exclaims in surprise at his incredible speed. Lodi finds himself on the opposite side of the arena, having knocked 2 opponents out of the game. The losers disappear from the field in a flash of light. Lodi is surprised at how quickly the elimination happened, understanding how the system works. He smiles quietly, pleased with the result. The enemy leader shouts to his panicking team to calm down. The wavy-haired strategist quietly approaches the dark-haired Lumia. He hands her a spool of thread, ordering her to tie it to a pole. He asks if she knows what to do when the time comes. Having completed the distraction, Lodi directs his gaze towards the barrel barrier. He leaps forward with 2 daggers, wondering if they are really at 60% power. The enemy leader boasts that their barrier is now both flexible and strong. Seeing a gap, he rushes forward, exclaiming that this is his chance. A girl from Lodi's team knocks him off his feet, and they roll on the ground together. Lodi raises his sword, completely frozen by the unexpected movement. Her eyes sparkle and she whispers the mysterious word, wet. Pushing away from him, she yells at Beryl to act immediately. Lodi stands there confused, trying to understand her strange action and words. A huge stream of fire bursts from Beryl's position, rushing forward. The student with glasses orders the team to leave the attack to him. Lodi stares in shock, wondering if this is an attack from his ally. The roaring pillar of flame is used by other students as a high-speed transport. The smug enemy leader confidently declares that Lodi is now out of the fight. He adjusts his glasses, an expression of supreme confidence shining on his face. A shimmering barrier appears in front of Lodi, deflecting the flames and saving him from defeat. The enemy leader screams in rage as he sees his plan suddenly thwarted. He realizes that Lumia used her ability to protect Lodi. Lodi's allies freeze in shock at such an unexpected turn of events. They grab his hands, urging him to retreat quickly. They vow not to let Lumia's sacrifice be in vain. The roaring stream of flame rushes on, losing its power. Lodi is eliminated from the fight, dissolving in a flash of light. Once on the bench, he smiles, realizing that it was a 2-stage attack. The rest of his retired comrades appear nearby in the stands. The wavy-haired strategist grimly comments that the enemy has sacrificed a piece in their game. The rival leader explains that his tactics forced Lumia to use her one-time ability. A moment of blurred motion, and the battle erupts again at a frantic pace. The enemy team announces that they are going into second form. They form a living battering ram with Beryl sitting on their shoulders. Lodi, watching from the stands, exclaims in amazement as he looks at the strange construction. The enemy leader explains, "If you can't move yourself, let them move you." The strategist orders Lumia to step back and wait for the signal. The burning living ram rushes forward, aiming at the strategist. He flees, and the enemy mockingly shouts that fleeing will not save him. The strategist hides behind a wall while flames roar behind him. The enemy boasts that his fire will destroy this wall in a matter of seconds. The strategist reminds Lumia not to forget the signal and to focus on the wall. Lumia activates the power. A dial glows behind her as she strengthens the wall. The enemy leader smugly remarks that it will only give 6 seconds. The strategist knows that after this time, the wall and Lumia will fall under the blow. The living ram stops abruptly, as if their time has run out. They crash into the wall with a deafening roar. Lumia shouts, "Now!" signaling at the perfect moment. The enemy leader freezes, and an expression of surprise appears on his face. He snaps his fingers, revealing the hidden move of his plan. The barrier turns out to be open at the bottom, allowing the formation to slip underneath. The spectators in the stands shudder at the unexpected maneuver. With a grin, the enemy leader gives the command to Miletus to act. The strategist, even though his plan failed, calmly says that this is not the end. He smiles confidently, having anticipated this move of his opponent. He turns his back as if accepting his own defeat. He notes that an enemy homemade bomb is not a bad idea. Miletus appears behind, trapping him in a barrier filled with Beryl's flames. The strategist agrees, saying he will allow his opponent to win. Miletus removes the barrier, releasing the assembled explosion outward. The strategist points to him, declaring that he will also destroy his enemy. Miletus does not have a time to react to the unexpected statement. A giant explosion engulfs them both in a blinding flash. The students in the stands watch in shock as the dramatic turn of events unfolds. The red-haired girl screams in disbelief that Squat was eliminated along with Miletus. The shot changes to show the last 3 opponents on the field. Only one girl stands against them, and her strategist hopes to awaken her power. The 3 enemies see that only Lumia is left and are confident in their superiority. Her teammates on the bench held their breath, waiting to see if she would realize her true gift. The enemies rush forward, announcing that Lumia is the last one on the field. Her estranged allies shout words of support, begging her not to give up. Lumia retreats in fear, screaming that she can't do it. She fires weak projectiles that are easily deflected by the opponent. Another shot smashes helplessly against the wall as it retreats. In despair, she thinks that she never understood what she was supposed to learn from the training. A sharp projectile shatters the wall next to her, scattering debris. She sees the projectile fly inches from her face, and her fear only grows. Lumia realizes with horror that using her power will make her defenseless. Her heart is beating loudly, and her perception of time is distorted by panic. She jumps up, barely avoiding a powerful blow. A spool of thread falls from her trembling hands. The armored opponent falls to the ground, missing the target. The attacker rages, realizing that Lumia used force on herself to dodge. She looks at the spool of thread lying at her feet. He clenches his fist, feeling a new understanding dawning in his mind. The strategist's words surface about how she must know when to act. Her gaze hardens. A determination to fulfill her duty appears in her heart. She breaks into a desperate sprint towards the distant arch. Her pursuers block her path, mocking her that escape is futile. In a close-up, her wide-open eye reflects off 3 attackers preparing to strike. With a single cry of "Finish her!" they rush forward to deliver the final blow. The arena is covered in a cloud of smoke and dust, hiding the result of the attack. A shocked Lumia emerges from the clouds of smoke, a question mark seemingly hanging over her head. The opponents exclaim in amazement, unable to believe that she escaped a coordinated attack. She clutches her chest, thinking it was too close and their movements seem slow. A wave of anxiety is rising as she realizes that she will not be able to avoid the next attack. Her pursuers sneer, assuring her that her luck has run out. A magical explosion erupts from the ground, causing Lumia to jump to the side with a scream. She maneuvers through a barrage of blows, the sword blade lightly cutting her shoulder, causing her to groan. In the stands, classmates watch in admiration as Lumia dodges every blow. Her footsteps echo dully on the stone, and the question swirls in her head as to why she can dodge at all. The irritated opponents scream in despair, not understanding why none of their blows reach her. Lumia herself is stunned, not knowing how she dodges all the attacks. On the bench, a calm squat smiles, quietly saying that his plan has finally worked. He claims that this is a manifestation of Lumia's truly incredible power. His classmates turn to him, confused and demanding an explanation. Squat asks Lodi to assess Lumia's reaction speed during the final spear attack. Lodi hesitates, suggesting it was about 0.1 seconds, although he is not certain. Squat calmly corrects him, claiming that it was even faster, a negative indicator. Lodi and his friend Beryl look on in absolute shock, trying to understand what negative time is. Squat explains that Lumia has been training relentlessly to increase her reaction speed. He reveals that she can now activate her power even before he gives the command. Lodi still doesn't understand, asking what this strange phrase means. Squat admits that for a short time, Lumia fights by looking into the future. The class erupts in exclamations of surprise upon hearing about the vision of the future. Lodi admits that he thought her power was to make things unbreakable. Squat clarifies that her true ability is to stop a target's time for 6 seconds. Lumia's legs carry her around the arena in a frantic sprint, despite her fatigue. A drop of sweat rolls down her cheek as she forces her exhausted body to move on. Her friends in the stands watch with admiration and anxiety in their eyes. Squat smiles calmly as he watches his plan come to fruition perfectly. The time pendant around her neck begins to glow, awakening true power. Ethereal, dial-like rings of light spin and expand around her. She falls to the ground, rolling over after a failed step. Looking back, she sees her attacker frozen in mid-strike as her time power unfolds. Classmates notice that without the cage, immortality would cut her pursuers in half. Beryl wipes the sweat from his forehead, unable to believe his eyes. Lumia looks back at her frozen opponents, stunned by her own strength. She rises, still shocked by the true extent of her ability. Squat explains that he intentionally created the chase situation to awaken her power. Lodi watches this with mute admiration, impressed by both the plan and the result. He jumps to his feet, shouting happily that Lumia made it. Lumia smiles, a single tear of joy and relief rolling down her cheek. Squat claims that with proper training, her strength will become incredible. The day of the official class competition arrives, filled with anxious anticipation. Lodi lies exhausted on his desk, moaning that he is already defeated after the written test. In the cafeteria, Squat asks a depressed friend how the exam went. Lodi raises his head and admits with pale eyes that he simply filled in all the blanks at random. Squat scolds him for whining, reminding him that all that remains is to defeat Class A. Their conversation is interrupted by the appearance of 2 familiar figures. This is Pains and Helia, who joyfully greet the boys after a long separation. Pains has heard about their intention to join Class E and looks on in disbelief. He bangs his fork on the table, asking if they are really serious about defeating Class A. Squat coldly replies, "Does he know him as a joker?" Pains smiles wryly, admitting that he doesn't, though there's still doubt in his voice. Helia gently explains that in the history of the academy, the senior classes have never lost. Lodi and Squat freeze, and Lodi asks if this has really never happened before. Squad adds that their Class E rarely even wins against Class D. Payne says that a fight between Classes A and B never lasted more than 30 seconds. He admits with a smile that once, when he was in Class C, he couldn't compete. He then hints that Helia knows more about the strongest classes than he does. Helia quietly admits that she was once in the lower ranks of Class A. She recalls how the 3 strongest students instantly defeated Class B, making her feel powerless. Payne and Lodi exclaim in surprise, not believing that Helia was in Class A. Payne states that the students in Class A are real monsters. Lodi sweats nervously, realizing they'll have to fight a team that wins in less than half a minute. Squat, with a determined look, says that he already knew all this. He emphasizes that their 6 months of grueling training were not in vain. Squat looks at his friends, confidently urging them to believe in their own efforts. Lodi's anxiety disappears, giving way to a confident smile, and he agrees with Squat. Helia stifles a laugh, amused by their sudden change in mood. She adds that despite skepticism, Payne came with high hopes for them. Payne smiles, admitting that it would be exciting if Class E won. Lodi and Squat exchange a look, finally solidifying their resolve. They declare in unison that they will give it their all and are looking forward to the fight. The majestic stone structure of the Colosseum towers above the students. An official announcement is made that the competition is about to begin. The students of Class E lined up, watching the commotion of the other classes. Squat attracts Lodi's attention, preparing to comment on what he saw. Lodi notes with surprise that he expected to see a large audience. The camera pans across the vast empty stands, where only the teachers are present. Squat agrees, because he himself thought they would come here for information. A voice is heard behind them, saying that emptiness is quite natural, and they hear a step forward. The boys look around and see a tall, menacing-looking student. A newcomer named Wiles, smiling, explains that no one wants to watch weaklings being bullied. Lodi and Squat look down, and Wiles leans in, continuing his taunts. He adds that the competition is just an opportunity for the seniors to humiliate the juniors. With contempt, he wonders why adults waste time on such a useless event. Lodi denies it, saying he heard that Class E has already defeated Class D. Wiles brushes it off, saying that Class D was simply worthless back then. He warns that an eternal cage will not protect their hearts from trauma. The students of Class E ask what he means by talking about unprotected hearts. Wiles explains that it's about the psychological fear of being trampled on by those above you. He angrily advises Class E, a collection of losers, to just give up. Squat listens to a humiliating speech with a cold and silent face. Lodi clenches his fist, unable to bear the insult any longer. Suddenly, Beryl steps forward, shouting for Wiles to shut up. Squat and Lodi look on in surprise at their comrade's sudden intervention. Wiles, frowning angrily, asks Beryl what he needs. The bespectacled student, Beryl, clutches his chest, explaining that looking at his opponent hurts him. Lodi and Squat look at him with complete incomprehension. Through tears, Beryl exclaims about the incurable wound of defeat by someone he considered inferior to him. Long-haired Wiles freezes in complete astonishment at such a sudden emotional confession. Squat and Lodi just stare in silence, confused by their friend's strange behavior. Beryl grabs Wiles by the collar, sobbing that this act of kindness will one day be appreciated. An enraged Wiles pushes him away, asking if there is a single conscious person in all of Class E. He smiles sinisterly, and the fury in his eyes is replaced by confidence, because he likes the situation. Snapping his fingers, he abandons the plan to be lenient, vowing to show who's boss here. He points to Beryl, announcing that he will be the first to remember this lesson. Wiles, furious, walks away, followed by his classmates, lost in the crowd in the arena. Beryl awkwardly explains to his surprised friends that he was only concerned about Wiles's well-being. Friends whisper doubts whether it was really good, and Lodi recognizes him as Squat's rival. Squat smiles, pleased that Beryl successfully provoked his opponent, easing the path to victory. From a high balcony, a group of instructors watches over their students in the empty Colosseum. They discuss the possibility of a sensation, noting the impressive new students of Class E. The old director thoughtfully strokes his long white beard, listening attentively. He looks up as 2 familiar figures approach, greeting him after a long absence. They turn out to be Payne, a scarred warrior, and Helia, a smiling healer. The director asks if they came to watch the competition, and Payne confirms. Payne says he heard about Class E's intention to win and finds it spectacular. The director doubts whether the young men realize the gravity of their audacious goal. With a self-confident smile, Payne assures us that they understand this perfectly well. Payne's unwavering confidence in the recruits arouses the director's sincere interest. The official voice announces the start of the tournament, which will be held in a knockout format. The tournament grid shows that the winners of the E versus D match will face the winners of C versus B. Squat and Lodi watch with nervous anticipation as their first fight is announced. Their rivals, Beryl and a girl from another class, watch with grim determination. The command to activate the equipment is given, and energy flares around the participants. The students of Class E stand on alert, focused and tense. Class D is also preparing, with Wiles at the helm, grinning confidently. He leads a chaotic attack, exclaiming that they don't need a strategy to defeat Class E. In contrast, Peril clearly orders Class E to form a defensive line. The defenders quickly take up positions in a coordinated manner, creating a wall of shields. They plant their feet firmly in the arena, establishing a defensive line. Peril in the center raises his hands, concentrating his fire magic into a barrier. Wiles recognizes the trick and believes they are trying in vain to fan the flames of Peril. He dismisses this tactic with disdain, confident in his own team's superiority. Wiles orders a full attack, convinced that the Class E barrier will fall instantly. Class D student flies sideways as two forces collide with a crash. The barrier is covered by a furious barrage of blows, and it cracks under the incredible pressure. Two Class E students fly back from the force of the attack. The magical defense completely disintegrates, unable to withstand the overwhelming power. Squat's classmates watch in shock as their initial strategy fails so quickly. Lodi exclaims in disbelief, asking how the barrier could have collapsed in a matter of seconds. Pains and Helia watch the events in amazement from the stands. The director and other instructors are equally impressed by the lightning-fast results. Wiles laughs derisively, mocking that Class E is so weak that it didn't even last 10 seconds. He leans over to Peril with a sneer, asking who looks humiliated now. Wiles is confused because instead of defeat in his eyes, Peril maintains a cold concentration. Peril ignores the taunts and orders the team to concentrate all attacks on Veils. The E-class attackers rush forward, but Wiles easily dodges the direct assault. He smiles, preparing to trample what he thinks are helpless opponents. Peril calmly releases the smoldering talisman card from his hand. The shine of his glasses obscures his gaze, and he quietly says that it's over. Looking up with a predatory smile, Peril clarifies, "It's over for Wiles." Wiles freezes as a huge magic circle flares up beneath his feet, realizing he was the decoy. The entire Class D team finds themselves trapped, staring in horror at the intricate runes. One of the students exclaims that such a giant circle is impossible for someone from Class E. On the sidelines, Squat says he'll ask Wiles the same question that Peril once asked him. Holding a shining spellbook, Squat asks, "Who is now humiliated?" The director and instructors watch the events with wide eyes. A few spectators in the hall exclaim in disbelief at the sudden turn of the fight. Pains and Helia exchange a silent but satisfied look. One of the students from Class E confirms that Class D has been completely destroyed. Squat, however, expresses disappointment that the fight ended so quickly. He tells his partner that he fought at half strength, looking at his fallen opponents. Peril stands over the defeated man, who only stutters in shock. Lodi delivers the final blow and the opponent falls, not believing in the power of Class E magic. With the victory over all of Class D, Squat solemnly declares the battle over. The commentator, clutching his head in despair, confirms the incredible outcome of the fight. The students of Class E explode with joy, hugging and loudly celebrating the victory. Lodi glances at Squat, noticing his gloomy expression. He asks what happened, noting that he looks unhappy, despite the victory. Squat explains that the opponents were so overwhelmed that the team was unable to demonstrate everything they had learned. Lodi smiles broadly, reassuring his friend that this is only the first fight, and everyone was tense. His upbeat words echo under the cloudy sky above the arena. In another part of the stands, students from other classes are lively discussing Class E's stunning victory. The girl from Class B dismissively dismisses this achievement, claiming that there is nothing to be afraid of. Another advises their leader, Margus, to think of a strategy against Class E. Margus mockingly waves it away, smashing a stone railing with his bare hand and declaring that no strategy is needed. The girl steps back, her face pale with shock and fear after such a reckless display of strength. The Academy emblem appears, a symbol of strict hierarchy and power. The camera slides across the empty stone stands of the Colosseum. The victorious Class E takes its seats to watch the next battle between Classes B and C. Lodi is almost jumping on the spot with excitement as he watches the teams. Squat points out the powerful Margus, calling him the strongest student in Class B and the main target. Hearing his name, a girl from their team, Mila, shudders sharply from internal pain. Mila quietly confirms that Squat's assessment of Margus's strength is absolutely correct. Lodi, noticing her reaction, asks if they know each other. Squat assumes he saw her name on the list and remembered that Margus was her brother. Mila says grimly that he could only have found out about it from the list, because she herself would never have said such a thing. Her gaze hardens, and she declares that Margus is not her brother. Squat and Lodi listen attentively, with expressions of genuine concern, feeling a deep animosity. In the arena below, Margus's partner notices an unusually large group of Class E spectators. He correctly determines that they came for reconnaissance. Margus smiles, inviting them to witness his power. He boldly declares that he is unlikely to need full power against Class C, and it is time to get started. The commentator's voice booms, announcing the start of the fight, and the crowd erupts in screams. Margus raises his hand, halting his own team with one brief order. Wait. With a cocky smile, a boy with spiky tousled hair named Margus orders his team to stay behind. He declares that he is going to finish the fight alone. His classmates and rivals from Class C freeze in shock and disbelief. The Class C leader shouts to his ranged fighters to attack immediately. A coordinated volley of magic covers the lone man, creating a huge explosion. From the stands, the students of Class E watch the devastating attack with tense faces. The guy with glasses remarks that it was reckless to rush into Class C alone. His companion Squat calmly denies with a short no. As the smoke begins to clear, a clear silhouette remains in the middle. Margus emerges from the fog completely unharmed. The spectators from Class E freeze in shock, unable to believe that he was not injured. He mockingly asks his opponents if this is all they are capable of, and announces that it is now his turn. The guy with the glasses is shocked that Margus has withstood so many blows without a single scratch. With a mighty leap, Margus exclaims that he will now go on the offensive. The boy with the scythe, Lodi, exclaims in fright at the sudden rush. He asks why Margus is rushing forward again on his own. The Class C leader, in a panic, orders his melee fighters to prepare to strike. Margus breaks through their ranks, taking blows to the forehead and not slowing down. The girl from Class E wonders what kind of ability could allow such a thing. Lodi notes that it doesn't seem like a special technique, but rather pure physical strength. He adds that, fortunately, the C-Class has not suffered major losses yet. Squad explains that Margus has physical enhancement weapons, the same as Lodi's. The students of Class E listen attentively to his explanation. He calls the artifact the bracers of superhuman strength. Squad suggests that the simpler the name, the more specialized and powerful the ability is. The guy with the glasses reminds Lodi that they learned this in class. He jokingly threatens to check later to see if Lodi has learned the material well, noticing how he is sweating. On the field, Margus easily throws off another opponent. He boldly calls on his enemies to attack him again. With a shout of "Forward!" he sends one of the students flying with a powerful blow. The one-sided beating continues as he faces multiple attackers at the same time. He easily dodges a powerful arcing sword strike. The Class C student rejoices prematurely, believing he has struck a lucky blow. There is no sign of damage on Margus's face, only surprise. He grabs his opponent's weapon, reprimanding him for his lack of seriousness. His brutal repression continues. He ruthlessly defeats the resistance of his enemies. He grabs the student's head and furiously slams it into the ground several times. The arena shakes with his loud, crazy, victorious laugh. The students of Class E watch in horror, not understanding what is happening. Mila, a reddish-blonde girl, remarks that Class C is not weak, but simply broken. The students of Class C are in chaos, screaming in pain and helplessness. Margus looks at his defeated opponent and asks if he's finished yet. He adds a farewell, dismissive kick that sounds like a sharp crack. He says with disappointment that he would like to have more fun from the fight. Lodi watches warily, suspecting something strange. He notices that Margus is holding back the force, keeping his enemies sane. A close-up shows a blow that clearly does not have fatal force. Lodi realizes with horror that Margus is simply bullying the weaker ones. Margus shakes the dust off his hands, sighing that this is all his rivals are capable of. He cracks his knuckles, preparing to finally end the fight. He delivers a final crushing blow that sends a shockwave through the arena. The commentator announces the end of the fight and the victory of Class B. Squat gravely acknowledges Margus's impressive and devastating power. Mila worries that Margus might even surpass Lodi. From the arena, Margus taunts the defeated Class C students sitting in the stands. The members of Class C desperately nurse their wounds, looking completely humiliated. Margus turns sharply, looking at the other side of the stands. A predatory smile lights up his face as he finds a new target. He addresses the students of Class E directly, who are watching him with serious looks. Theatrically asks if his fighting style will be a useful example for them. Scat's gaze is sharp and analytical. He carefully dissects the brutal display of force. He quietly confirms to his friends that they will need this information. Margus laughs, noting that Class E is really teaching to its fullest this year. He encourages them to stay in shape so they are ready when the time comes for the challenge. Lodi and the guy with the glasses give in to his feigned athleticism for a moment. He waves to the crowd, as if sincerely accepting their wishes. That friendly mask falls off, revealing his true sadistic nature and philosophy. The students of Class E look on in surprise at his sudden change in tone. A close-up shows his face contorting into a sinister, toothy smile. Lodi and the others sigh in surprise, realizing his true malicious nature. Margus relishes memories of crushing those who desperately tried to defeat him. The defeated students of Class C are shown in complete despair and humiliation. Mila listens to his words about enjoying other people's suffering with a painful expression on her face. Lodi realizes with horror that Margus is a true unrepentant executioner. Scat confirms that he fights like that intentionally, for his own amusement. The guy with glasses irritably retracts his previous positive opinion of Margus. Margus declares that the funniest face of suffering in his life belonged to Mila. These words hit her painfully and hard. The students of Class E clench their fists, uniting in silent collective rage. The flashback shows young Mila desperately fighting with her brother. Margus taunts the defeated Mila, disdainfully remarking that she didn't even touch him. He expresses unexpected joy that he will be able to face her again in an official battle. He wonders what kind of funny and desperate face she will show this time. Waving a careless farewell, he walks away with his victorious team. Mila looks after him, a new determination rising in her thoughts. Scat explodes in anger, declaring that they simply have to win the next match. Mila looks at him, her face hardening in quiet determination. She nods silently and firmly, agreeing with Squat's words. Later, Lodi admits that Margus's power is definitely real. He remembers how he beat the rest of his class all by himself. One of the students notes with concern that the fight will be difficult even for the two of them together. He turns to Mila, talking about their strong rival, Margus. He assumes that once the match starts, Margus will go straight for her. Mila agrees, confirming that his prediction will most likely come true. Lodi asks if her relationship with him is really that bad. She looks down, painfully admitting that Margus hates her. Mila stuns him by admitting that he became cruel because of her. She reveals that before receiving her weapons, she was stronger than him. Lodi is stunned, and Mila confirms that she has never lost to him. Scat correctly concludes that this was due to a fundamental difference in their techniques. A classmate praises Mila, noting that even the mighty Lodi had a hard time dealing with her throw. Mila blushes at the compliment, and a faint, satisfied smile appears on her lips. Looking up at the sky, Mila begins to tell the story of her family. In her flashbacks, she recalls training every day with her brother Margus to become a guardsman. Young Mila emerges victorious over the defeated Margus after a practice fight. She remembers her own self-confidence when she easily outplayed her clumsy brother in exercises. Margus hated training and often tried to skip it, but the adults caught him. The townspeople and their parents constantly scolded him for his defeats by his sister. Mila believes that this constant pressure began to distort his character. She sadly explains that he hated everyone who sincerely tried to become better. Powerful new weaponry intensified his twisted pleasure in destroying the labor and efforts of others. Scat exclaims indignantly that Margus's behavior is senseless revenge for his own anger. Another friend dismisses the whole situation as completely absurd. Their bespectacled strategist steps forward, declaring that a new decisive factor has emerged. He claims that Margus's obsession with Mila will be the key to the upcoming battle. The strategist boldly announces the plan. Mila will fight Margus one-on-one. The entire team reacts with collective shock and disbelief at such a dangerous strategy. Scat objects, saying it's impossible, but Mila reminds him of the difference in their strength. She indifferently assures him that everything will be fine, despite the obvious danger. Scat remains unconvinced, wondering how this could end well if she fights alone. Mila reveals that she trained with Scat and Lodi for 6 months specifically for this fight. She confidently tells Scat that he is now finally ready to meet Margus. Scat freezes, contemplating the depth of her long-term plan. Lodi agrees with Mila's assessment, believing that Scat has become strong enough. He confirms that he didn't hold back in the last sparring, and Scat was able to endure the fight. Filled with confidence, Scat declares that Mila's persistence will overcome Margus's brute strength. Mila blushes slightly, touched by his sincere belief in her abilities. One of the classmates realizes that Scat was part of this plan from the very beginning. She asks if he really prepared for this for half a year, and he confirms. Scat turns to Mila, his gaze becoming serious and focused on the upcoming fight. Mila remembers all the grueling training, and for a moment doubt appears in her eyes. A sudden insight makes her eyes widen. Scat notes that a plan is worthless if the opponent doesn't act as they expect. With a sly smile, he asks if he can rely on her in this important role. Mila's expression hardens and the doubt disappears completely. She finally understands why training was so monotonous. It was all preparation for this moment. With quiet determination, she agrees to the plan without any hesitation. Clenching her fist, she loudly declares that she will deal with him herself. On the day of the fight, Margus waves from the height of the arena, attracting the attention of the crowd. He mockingly greets the unknown students of Class E waiting downstairs. He mockingly calls them his toys and advises them to try not to break down too quickly. Scat looks at him with a confident smile, saying that the fight promises to be interesting. He turns to Mila, asking if she agrees with this. Mila nods nervously, stating that she has honed her technique for this very moment. She closes her eyes, gathering her thoughts and bracing herself for the fight. She admits to her friends that she once resigned herself to the idea that she would never be able to compete with Margus. Regaining her resolve, she clenches her fist and says she wants to believe in her own work. Her comrades nod in silent support, their faith in her unwavering. A student from another class, dressed ostentatiously and extravagantly, begins to applaud slowly. He mockingly asks if all her hard work was a waste of time. Margus crunches his knuckles, declaring that breaking their spirit will be worth it. A powerful wave of air rips past the Class E as Margus makes a sudden aggressive move. One of his comrades tries to restrain him, reminding him that the fight has not officially begun yet. Margus laughs maniacally, saying that he couldn't wait and that Class E invited himself to the pain. The older student reprimands him for his behavior, but the elderly official judge remains silent. The announcer asks if both teams are ready to finally start the match. Margus growls his readiness, eager to start the fight on his own terms. Scat and Lodi stand side by side, confirming that Class E is ready for a fierce battle. After the starting signal, both teams rush at each other in a chaotic attack. Scat's expression is grim and focused. The plan has begun to work. Mila knows that Margus will target her from the first seconds. His mocking voice cuts through the roar of battle, asking where she is headed. He appears right in front of her, causing her to freeze in shock. Mila manages to bounce back as his powerful blow pierces the ground where she was standing. She lands lightly, increasing the distance from a devastating blow. He scoffs, asking if she's just running away from him. With a cruel smile, he wants to see what results her hard work has yielded. Mila trembles but remains silent, hiding her anxiety behind a cold mask. She thinks Margus is pursuing her just as she expected and wanted. He boasts that the level of their artifacts is incomparable. To prove it, he prepares to destroy a stone column with one blow. Margus shatters a massive column with a powerful kick. He states that in combat, only absolute strength matters. The column falls with a crash, clearly demonstrating its power. He dismissively says that hard work and technique are nothing, and strength is the absolute truth. He enjoys the feeling of breaking an opponent's spirit with brute force. Mila stands among the rubble and coldly says that he is the worst type of person. She warns that his pride could become his own enemy in this battle. Margus mockingly asks if she has forgotten their past together. He reminds her that he defeated her before she even got her artifact. The memory makes her shudder as he screams for her to shut up and accept her fate. A look of realization appears on Margus's face. He guesses her true plan. He understands perfectly well that she is stalling for time so that her team can win the main battle. Mila's heart sinks. He was always quick to expose such strategies. In her mind, she confirms that she planned to buy as much time as possible. Margus mockingly says he'll leave her for dessert and turns to leave. Mila rushes in pursuit, refusing to let him go and ruin their strategy. He scoffs, asking if she's afraid that Class E will lose without her help. She replies that even his strength will be inferior to the elite Class A. With a predatory smile, she asks if he must admit this absolute truth. Her words hit the mark and Margus explodes in uncontrollable rage. He throws himself at her, screaming that she will never even touch him. His powerful fist cuts through the air, flying purposefully into her face. Mila meets the attack with a focused and ready gaze. Instead of dodging, she takes the blow with her hardened fist. She groans from the force of the collision, but uses his inertia to turn around. With a light movement of her palm, she hits it, noticing that he is still slower than Lodi. Taking advantage, she yells for him to get another hit. Margus prepares to block her fist, surprised by her sudden acceleration. But it turns out to be a clever feint, and Mila kicks him in the side. With a confident expression, she reminds him of her honed techniques. Holding his side, Margus steps back, muttering curses in pain and disbelief. His moan quickly turns into a low laugh of pure pleasure. He mockingly asks if that was her best technique, finding it funny. Spreading his arms, he roars that her attack was completely futile. Mila's confidence is shattered as she realizes with horror that he is completely unharmed. A sharp pain pierces her. She can't believe his blow could have been so strong. With growing horror, she realizes that her left leg is in very bad condition. She decides not to give up, knowing that the work of the entire team is at stake. A new determination flares up in her. She wants to defeat him herself. The strategist carefully surveys the Colosseum, noting that Margus is acting exactly as they predicted. The leader sees that Mila is successfully holding back their powerful opponent. Gathering the team, he orders them to follow the plan and enter battle. The Class E warriors roar back, vowing to prove that they are more than just a one-star team. Their footsteps rumble across the stone floor, creating a powerful rhythm of attack. A coordinated onslaught of Class E rushes across the arena to engage their enemies. Suddenly, a wall of fire grows in front of them. Peril releases his fiery spell. One of the Class B students recognizes Peril and recalls his skill in the hidden control of fire. He mentions that this tactic worked great against the weaker Class D. With self-confidence, he rejects this obstacle, considering it useless against them. His gold bracelet sparkles as he vows to show his true power. He concentrates his energy, preparing to activate the ability of the gravel bracelet. A huge block erupts from the earth, soaring into the air. A giant projectile races through the arena to crush the opposing team. He boasts of the strength of his stone giants, confident of victory. One of the Class E fighters steps forward, declaring that he will deal with the threat. The Class E commander raises his hand, preparing a lightning counterattack. He releases a stream of metal projectiles from a cast-iron bracelet. The cloves shower the surface of the block in a hailstorm, creating a powerful explosive impact. The stone thrower asks in astonishment if his opponent is really shooting nails. He mockingly rejects this attack, certain that his block is too strong. A shower of nails explodes on the surface of the stone, noticeably slowing its movement. The block continues to fly, but is already seriously damaged by the incessant shelling. The Class B student is amazed at the number of shells fired. A huge pillar of dark energy grows behind the Class E commander. The stone thrower is completely distracted by this dramatic flash of magical power. The commander smiles, proud of his increased speed and successful diversionary tactics. He warns the confused opponent that he should look back. Lodi instantly appears behind the stone thrower, holding 2 sharp sabers at the ready. One of the Class B students gives him a thumbs up, but is immediately challenged by his opponent. The Class B swordswoman warns Class E not to get too carried away with success. She boasts of the incredible sharpness of her blade, capable of instant punishment. Lumina calmly steps forward, declaring that now is her time to act. She shows off her weaponry, a ring of flooding cages on her finger. A giant wall of water erupts from the ground, intercepting the attack from above. The swordswoman is surprised by the sudden appearance of a water obstacle. Its ultra-sharp blade easily cuts through a liquid barrier. She mockingly declares that she will simply cut and destroy this obstacle. Lumina watches calmly, noting how easily the barrier is cut through. However, she knows for sure that cutting the water is useless. The flow instantly closes again, restoring the wall. The swordswoman grits her teeth in rage, realizing that her attack is completely worthless. She struggles with this turbulent current, her movements slowed by the heavy water. Lumina playfully teases her, puffing out her cheeks as if holding her breath. In a panic, the opponent asks if she is really going to break through by force. The swordswoman desperately bides time to escape the trap. A student sitting on a friend's shoulders reveals his powerful second form. With a maniacal smile, he declares that he is the true main attacker of Class E. The captured swordswoman takes a direct hit with a powerful flash of magic. The attacker shouts at Lumina to act now. She nods, a firm determination appearing in her gaze. Lumina removes the water barrier, releasing stored energy. The explosive force throws the swordswoman far back, completely knocking her out of the fight. The attacker laughs, boasting about the heat of his flames, and asks who is next. He suggests to the rest of Class B to retreat while there is still a chance. The plant magic of one of the Class B students is instantly burned away by the precise fireballs. Another Class B fighter cannot withstand the onslaught and falls to the ground defeated. Even the jump of another student does not save him from the hellish shelling. The Class B commander stares at the battle in a daze, believing the situation to be impossible. He can't understand how his elite class is pushing out Class E. The Class E leader snaps his fingers, offering to help the Class B commander accept reality. A magic circle flares up beneath his feet, pushing him forward at breakneck speed. The Class B commander is shocked by the sudden appearance of a magical symbol. He convulsively prepares to take the inevitable high-speed impact. But this turns out to be a cunning maneuver. The leader of Class E simply speeds past him. The commander doesn't understand how someone from Class E can possess such incredible power. The leader pretends to apologize for his skillful tactical deception, instantly delivers a sharp and precise blow to another student from Class B. Their strategy is to ruthlessly destroy opponents who have weaknesses. Lodi confirms to his leader that the plan is working perfectly, but the leader warns that they have only defeated half of their opponents. He worries that Margus's return to the battlefield will be a disaster. His gaze involuntarily turns to Mila, hoping that she will still hold out. Mila notices that Margus still hasn't been able to hit her. He growls that it's just because she keeps running away. He rushes forward, seeking to make her regret her impudent taunts. He swears that she will answer for her contempt, and orders her not to underestimate him. Mila easily dodges his powerful blow with a smooth and graceful movement. Using his inertia, she spins around him, catching him by surprise. Placing her hand on his shoulder, she skillfully controls his forward movement. Margus is shocked by the sudden change in their positions. Mila quickly and precisely slashes the back of his head with the edge of her palm. A sharp and confident blow momentarily stuns a much larger opponent. She mockingly asks how many more times he will resort to this simple trick. Marcus's eyes widen in shock, unable to believe her incredible skill. He swings a powerful punch, but Mila bounces back, easily dodging. He shouts in fury that her evasive tricks won't work on him. Mila challenges him, asking why he can't beat her now. He wonders how much longer it will take his invincible strength to defeat her. Pushed to the limit, he growls for her to stop already. His face contorts into a demonic grin, and Margus vows to make his rival regret the insult. Tired and beaten, Mila swallows, but coldly remarks that she has already heard his threats. A single word of denial, no, sounds in the silence, a sign of her unwavering determination. In a spacious stone arena, 2 fighters stand face to face to decide the fate of the fight. From the stands, Lodi smiles, commenting that Mila is holding up surprisingly well. But his strategist, Scott, reminds them in a tense voice that they should hurry. Scott reveals that he ordered Miley to stay calm as the situation got worse. In the flashback, Marcus deals her a heavy blow, showing that she has already sustained serious damage. Scott notices an unnatural movement in her left leg, a clear sign of a hidden injury. He grimly concludes that it's only a matter of time before she's out of the fight. Meanwhile, on another section of the field, a bespectacled student, Peril, boasts that his flame is the fourth most powerful in Class E. With a smug smile, he prepares to unleash his power, inviting his enemies to taste it. Suddenly, a random arrow flies out of the enemy's ranks and hits him with one shot. Caught on the sidelines of the battle, Peril clutches his head, screaming in despair and shock at his instant defeat. Scott sighs, noting that he warned Peril to be careful, but still gives credit for the accurate shot. He explains that the difference in strength did not allow Peril's barrier to repel the attack like it did against Class D. A Class B student cheers on his team while disparagingly evaluating Class E's individual abilities. He states that their superiority in strength will allow them to simply destroy their enemies one by one. Scott calmly decides that now is the perfect time to move on to Plan B. Lodi asks if he intends to use the powerful Trial of Lightning spell again. Scott explains that such a large-scale attack will not work against Class B's strong defense. He also emphasizes that he wants every Class E fighter to be able to prove themselves in combat. Lodi's face clears and he clenches his fist with determination. Scott orders Lodi to relay a new message to the rest of the team. With a confident salute, Lodi accepts the order and rushes to distribute it. The new target is announced to be a short, red-haired boy named Christ. The entire E-class merges into a single rush, stomping loudly on the stone platform. Christ is shocked when he realizes that all the blows are now aimed only at him. Opponents instantly surround him, swinging their weapons in unison. Their footsteps thunder in time with the relentless approach to their intended goal. In the chaotic turmoil, Christ desperately repels the coordinated and fierce blows of his opponents. He manages to stop a sharp swing from below, but the pressure becomes unbearable. Suddenly, in a blur of motion, his defensive stand breaks. An expression of utter surprise appears on his face when something unexpected and unseen happens. He disappears in a flash of light, leaving enemies with only an empty space to beat. The Class B leader was stunned. He could clearly see that his comrade had not been hit by a single blow. He quickly gives the order to focus the attack on another Class E fighter. The explosion of a powerful impact throws one of the students back with a scream of pain. He dodges the new target, Scott, with a deft step to the side, carelessly noting that it was close. His flawless maneuver causes the Class B attackers to scatter in panicked disarray. Their leader shouts, ordering them not to let the enemies escape. Suddenly, one of the attackers stops abruptly, breathing out in fear. He notices with horror the shiny invisible threads stretched across the battlefield. The Class B leader shouts to stop, but it's too late. Scott and Lodi watch as their commander coldly asks if he finally noticed the trap. Lumia reveals the truth. The entire arena is entwined with her threads, depriving her enemies of freedom. The Class B leader, covered in sweat, tries to understand the cunning trap. He realizes with horror that Class E was only pretending to escape to pull strings. A close-up shows a student's hand holding a spool of almost invisible magic thread. The leader exclaims in disbelief that Christ lost because of something as simple as a rope. He swings his sword, but touching the thread instantly throws him out of the fight. The dark-skinned Class E fighter warns the rest that the threads will do the same to them. Lodi and Scott deliver a ruthless and hopeless ultimatum to the prisoners. Lumia looks at them, her expression asking, "Will you die from my threads?" Or from the concentrated attacks of Class E students, smiling creepy smiles. The Class B leader lets out a terrified scream, sensing an imminent checkmate. His scream echoes through the silent arena, announcing the team's complete defeat. A close-up shows Lodi's serious and determined look at the moment of implementing the plan. Scott watches with cold analytical certainty, the strategy executed flawlessly. Lumia stands still, her face a mask of quiet, unwavering concentration. The remaining Class E fighters stand together, triumphing over their immobilized opponents. Mila, having paused her own duel, realizes that this victory also affects her battle. In the stands, the elderly director watches the unexpected turn of events with a smile. He laughs when his colleague confirms that only Margus is left in Class B. Lodi happily celebrates with the team, noting that they did it. One of the comrades recalls that despite the strategy, only 8 remained in the battle. Lumia suddenly exclaims with concern, asking what happened to Mila. Mila's leg drags heavily on the ground, betraying her complete exhaustion. She stands among her fallen comrades, whom Margus threw away with one movement. He knocks down another student with a strong, careless swing. Margus scoffs, asking if her vaunted fighting techniques are truly effective. His face contorts into an evil mocking smile, calling the situation strange. Blood flows from Mila's hand, proving that his blows are hitting the target. Panting, she stubbornly insists that these blows have no effect. But blood is also dripping from her leg, disproving her words and showing the depth of the wounds. The final stage of the battle with Class B begins. Mila goes up against Margus alone. Gritting her teeth, she stands in the dirt, but with unwavering determination. Margus disdainfully says that it would be a shame for his team to lose to Class E. Rage boils within him at the mere thought of his own defeat. Mila takes a deep breath, preparing for the decisive clash. Margus's eyes narrow, filled with bloody rage. Standing in a fighting stance, Mila asks if he understands what her pose means. He roars that he doesn't care about her ridiculous stances. She quietly agrees, her gaze filled with incomprehensible determination. Margus rushes forward, promising to end the fight the way she wanted. Mila shouts that her blow carries the feelings and hopes of all of Class E. Margus roars that sentimental will is nothing against his invincible strength. He demands that she fall before his power and accept defeat. Their fists meet, and a golden runic shield seal flashes from Mila's hand. Margus steps back, his body shaking in complete shock and disbelief. His eyes widen in shock as he asks how her fist can be so hard. On the sidelines, Squat's team jokes that Margus has had no luck at all. Squat explains that Mila's unbreakable fist is not just willpower. A close-up shows Mila's glowing fist, confirming that this is a special powerful technique. Margus's fist begins to smoke, then crumbles into dust-like particles. He looks at his shattered hand with pure, unadulterated horror. In a moment, he is transported from the arena in a blinding flash of light. The battle is finally won. Mila's powers betray her, and she falls to her knees. She leans to one side, completely exhausted from the long and brutal battle. Lumia and Lodi rush to her, calling out her name with relief and anxiety. The duel is over, and Lumia, exhaling, drops to her knees, asking if everything is okay. Mila thanks Lumia with a tired smile, admitting that she wouldn't have won without her help. Lumia smiles warmly in response, admitting that she herself couldn't have coped without Mila. The victorious Squat reveals their strategy, explaining how Lumia's skill makes things unbreakable. The Lodi leader approaches Mila, congratulating her for holding out so long. Mila and Lumia celebrate their victory, clenching their fists in a triumphant gesture. One of the defeated students is surprised by the strange and unexpected outcome of the fierce battle. His comrades try to restrain the enraged Margus, who screams in disbelief at his defeat. A disembodied voice tells him that he should be ashamed of himself. Squat teaches Margus that he lacks not only martial skills, but also the power of friendship. He adds that together, friends are able to overcome even huge differences in strength. Angry and morally broken, Margus yells for them to shut up and refuses to listen. Lodi remarks that he is wasting his powerful weapon and should channel his anger elsewhere. The official voice announces to the entire arena the unexpected victory of Class E. The stands explode with applause, welcoming the triumph of the underrated fighters. They show the building of the Great Academy. A spectacular sound echoes through the air. A lone figure on the roof reflects that this entire incredible event is like a dream. The victorious Class E steps together, confirming their readiness for the next battle. The bespectacled student worries that they never conducted reconnaissance against the formidable Class A. He explains that many of the Class A students are already active members of the barrier organization. He recalls how only 2 Class A students showed up for the battle and still defeated the entire Class B. The team freezes, contemplating this disturbing and depressing news. Lodi confidently says that even though Margus defeated Class B by himself, Mila and Lumia still defeated him. His comrades agree approvingly, encouraged by his unwavering confidence. The guy with glasses jokingly wishes that even fewer Class A students would come to their match. Suddenly, a sharp cry pierces the air. Someone has tripped and fallen. There's a strange, hilly pile of colorful blankets on the trail. The pile stirs, revealing the person under the cloth, which shocks Squat. A sleepy girl with small horns sits up, rubs her eyes, and asks if it's time for battle. Lumia runs up to her, worried if she's hurt and why she's sleeping in the open. The girl cheerfully explains that she overslept and didn't want to be late leaving the dorm. The entire company freezes, confusedly digesting her strange logic. A sudden burst of energy throws everyone back as the girl begins to gather herself. Getting up, she thanks them for waking her up, and the water element swirls around her. With a cheerful wave of her hand, she runs away, leaving her 4 friends in stunned silence. They stand, unable to make sense of this strange encounter. Squat turns to the team, asking who this mysterious girl is. Mila's voice sounds serious. This girl is extremely strong. With a gloomy expression, Mila calls the sleepy stranger Layla. The guy with glasses confirms that she is rumored to be the strongest in Class A. He adds that Layla loves sleep more than anything and often skips classes. Lodi jokes that it would be great if she just slept through the competition. Mila looks at the arena grimly, certain that this will definitely not happen. The team arrives at the arena, identifying the participants from Class A. Introducing Layla, whose weaponry allows her to turn into a cursed storm spirit. They show Lemma, whose substitution shield can redirect any attack at him. They celebrate Ruin, a swordsman capable of powerful long-range slashes. Represents Venus, whose eye with a monocle can stop time and emit rays of light. Lodi evaluates the 4 main opponents, saying that this is exactly what he expected. Squat realizes that the situation is even worse than he anticipated. A real worst-case scenario. Lodi confidently reassures Squat, stating without a shadow of a doubt that they will win. On the other side of the field, the mighty Layla is fast asleep, perched on Lemmy's lap. The Class E team watches in shock, unable to believe that she is napping right before a battle. Lemmy puts a finger to his lips, calling for silence from his opponents. She whispers to them to speak more quietly and not wake her older sister. Squat asks incredulously if they're really going to start the match in this condition. There's a soft laugh from Class A, and a voice assures them that everything is okay. Venus places a hand on Ruin's shoulder, sharing her eagerness for the fight. The rest of Class E nervously agrees that they are also looking forward to this duel. Squat notes that Class A exudes a completely different, more collected aura than the others. The official announcer asks if both teams are ready for the final battle. Class E gets into battle position as the decisive match of the class competition begins. Venus and Ruin stand firm as the announcer shouts the command to begin the fight. The Class E ranged unit immediately attacks, attempting to defeat Layla while she sleeps. Another Class A student sighs, saying that her older sister is truly helpless. Lemmy raises her shield, vowing to prevent anyone from disturbing her sister's sleep. Under the barrage of magical blows, the shield hisses and smokes but withstands the onslaught. Squat exclaims in surprise that she was able to repel all of their first attacks. Ruin declares that since they did not spare their sleeping rival, he will not hold back either. He raises his huge sword, preparing a devastating counterattack. With a powerful roar of "Let's begin!" he releases a wave of energy across the entire field. Lodi shouts a warning to everyone to stay away from the next strike. A giant explosion tears through the ranks of Class E, instantly knocking out many. A panoramic shot shows the scale of the attack, students running away in panic. In a close-up, 2 students are being thrown back by a powerful wave. Those who remain are shocked that so much has been defeated in an instant. Lodi realizes that the attack was too fast to be a true long-range strike from Ruin. He concludes that Ruin has weak defenses, and now he will prepare for a real long-range attack. Venus is impressed by the depth of Lodi's research into their abilities. Fed up with the battle, Venus decides to join the fight himself, ignoring orders to stay behind. Squat tries to shout a warning to the team as Venus moves at blinding speed. He instantly finds himself in front of Lodi, declaring that he will be his first target. The runes on his exquisite monocle flash, activating the ability to stop time. Lodi calls out to Squat, completely caught off guard by Venus's appearance. Squat is similarly shocked to realize that Venus possesses a similar power related to time. The students of Class C react with surprise and anxiety to the sudden turn of events. Venus calmly stops Squat and Lodi in time, neutralizing 2 of their strongest opponents. The rest of the team realizes with horror that their movements are blocked by Venus's power. With a smug smile, he asks what they think of his evil eye monocle. Venus explains that the 2 will remain frozen in time until he turns off his power. Lumia clenches her fist, her face filled with determination, despite the loss of the leaders. The remnants of the Class E team prepare to confront Venus on their own. He looks around them with a condescending and mocking expression. The blonde from Class E watches in shock as she watches what happens. Venus mockingly remarks that none of them even try to escape. The blonde and Lumia admit that they anticipated this possibility, but it's still shocking. A student with an eye patch suddenly pushes Venus's monocle away from his eye. He freezes in surprise, not expecting such a quick physical reaction. Lumia seizes the opportunity and releases a magical charge, hitting the confused Venus. She stands ready, her artifact smoking after a successful counterattack. A girl with short blonde hair watches, stunned by what she sees. Venus with a monocle expresses only slight surprise. Holding a small card, he notes the impressive defense, able to withstand his previous blow. He concludes that she did not have time to react, but knew about the attack in advance. Asks if she is the same legendary genius from Class E who can see the future. Mila mentally guesses that he must have meant their strategist, Squat. Venus waves it off, wondering how the others will handle his power. Suddenly, he turns around and fires an energy beam straight at Squat. Squat exclaims in surprise as a devastating attack rushes towards him. A shimmering round magic symbol appears in front of him, blocking the blow. A powerful blow forces Squat to retreat back, but he remains unharmed. Panting, he confirms that he is okay, although visibly stunned. Clenching his fist, he glances gratefully at Lumia and thanks her for saving him. Venus is visibly shocked that his powerful attack has been repelled again. He quietly marvels at their abilities, asking why they are even in the low-ranked Class E. While lost in thought, he accidentally drops his exquisite monocle. In this moment of confusion, the students of Class E completely surround him. Mila doesn't miss the chance and shouts the order to launch a full-scale assault. Her team instantly obeys, unleashing a barrage of magical and physical attacks on the enemy. Venus coldly remarks that their offense is not as impressive as their defense. Suddenly he realizes his tactical error as the coordinated attack begins to take effect. With supernatural grace, he dodges a barrage of blows, moving between them like a shadow. He easily leaps over a sweeping sword strike, displaying an almost contemptuous ease. Even takes the time to praise their strategy of alternating between close and long-range attacks. Mila, focused to the limit, carefully monitors his every move. Venus responds with a series of energy shots aimed at Mila and her companions. A student with a spear holds his ground steadfastly amidst the smoke and chaos. The girl in glasses stands unwaveringly, with an expression of determination on her face. A boy with a small axe emerges from the smoke, ready to rejoin the fight. Mila notices that Venus' attacks did no damage and ponders his plan. Finding herself in the circle of rivals, Venus calls the situation a real mystery. A close-up shows a monocle with intricate runes shining on the lens. The students rush at him again in a frantic melee. He leaps high into the air in one leap, dodging every blow with perfect precision. Others exclaim in shock that he dodged absolutely all the attacks. They decide to continue the onslaught relentlessly, hoping to wear him down. Venus, with a bored smile, declares that she will simply deal with everyone at once. Mila's eyes widen. A premonition shows her imminent mortal danger. She desperately shouts for everyone to retreat immediately. Venus smiles, praising her foresight, which is almost on par with the best in Class A. He raises his monocle upwards, preparing to unleash his absolute power. A huge, glowing magic circle erupts beneath his feet, crackling with energy. On the side of the field, Lumia prays fervently that her protective spell will have time to work. Venus declares that it is too late, and his attack begins to take shape. The devastating spell, Scorched Earth of the Sky-Eye, descends upon the battlefield. Venus is stunned to see that there are still survivors after the catastrophic impact. He doesn't believe anyone can withstand such devastating power. The camera pans over the few survivors standing among the craters with a defiant look in their eyes. Mila explains that she was only able to protect those who were nearby, and she won't be able to do it again. Venus looks up at the stands, and enlightenment appears in his eyes. The other girl quietly tells Lumia that it's almost time to begin their plan. Lumia silently confirms, her gaze full of determination and tension. A loud step into the ground marks a new stage of the battle. The dark-skinned Lemmy rushes forward with a huge shield to join the battle. Venus remembers seeing Squat wounded with his arm bandaged. Squat clenches his hand, pain reflected on his face. Venus then pretended to sympathize, noting that the infirmary would be crowded today. He recalls the faces of those who were just knocked out by his attack, and he understands that these were the ones his previous blows had not touched. After piecing together all the details, he finally unravels their critical weakness. Venus approaches those who remain and voices the guess that they cannot block him twice. Lumia realizes in a panic that he has figured out all their tactics. Venus laughs and decides to test her theory immediately. He targets the commander, who has already repelled his attack once, and releases an energy beam. Lumia activates the card and the blow disappears in a cloud of smoke. Venus is momentarily confused, thinking he made a mistake. But he looks more closely, and in the glare of his monocle, the truth emerges. Lumia holds the map, calmly denying that his conclusion was correct. Venus's eyes narrow sharply, and he yells at one of the students to step aside. The invisible blow hits that spot, and now he's sure they really can't block twice. As he prepares to attack the next student, Lodi decisively steps forward to stop him. Venus nods, finally confirming the weakness of their defensive strategy. He defines Lodi's power as time manipulation, similar to his own. Lumia and her friend watch in amazement at the unexpected discovery. Lodi defiantly challenges Venus, swiftly launching a frontal attack. Lemmy covers Venus, stopping time for Lodi, her hands moving in blurred shadows. Venus explains her critical flaw. She cannot stop time for the same person twice. He reveals that he guessed this because he himself has the ability to time. As proof, he holds up one of Lumia's disposable cards. Lodi discovers Venus's secret. His true power lies in predicting the future. Lemmy irritably asks if he even has time to chat during a fight. Lodi takes advantage of the moment of shock by delivering a sudden and powerful kick. Venus falls to the ground with a thud, groaning in unexpected pain. He tells himself to calm down, realizing that despair will not lead to victory. He acknowledges that Lodi's prediction is powerful but has limited range. He scoffs, asking how Lodi is going to win without offensive technology. Lumia stands ready, a huge magic circle forming in front of her. But Venus's mockery is cut short when something suddenly pierces his magical barrier. His eyes widen in pure shock at the impossible breakthrough. "That's it," Lodi says, revealing the nature of the attack. The ordinary cloth bandage on Squat's arm turned into an unbreakable blade. Venus realizes that this was only possible because Squat was injured and participated in the battle. He stammers, asking why they are in Class E at all. A blinding pillar of light bursts from the arena, announcing his defeat. The Squat retreats, its role in the flawlessly executed plan complete. He smiles broadly, rejoicing and proud of his victory. Lumia leads her classmates in a loud shout of triumph and relief. One of the girls asks in surprise what just happened with the course of the battle. Squat and Lodi reappear, causing a wave of exclamations of surprise among the team. Squat explains that after Venus' defeat, their time has run out again. In a close-up, the young girl's eyes widen as her name is called, Lumia. A blonde boy named Squat smiles at his comrade Lodi, asking how the fight went. With relief and joy, Lumia clenches her fist in a gesture of victory. She proudly reports to Squat that the battle unfolded exactly as he predicted. Lumia excitedly adds that she was sure that the genius of foresight that their rival mentioned was him. Squat clenches his fist in triumph, congratulating the team and noting that there are only 3 Class A opponents left. Lodi, however, notices that their own forces have also been greatly reduced. Suddenly, Lumia sighs sharply, her face filled with anxiety. She desperately shouts to the team to get down on the ground immediately. A powerful wave of energy cuts through the air, forcing the students to dive for cover. Catching his breath, Lodi exclaims that the blow was dangerously close. The red-haired swordsman Ruin angrily snaps, furious that his attack was dodged. Squat recognizes this blow, concluding that Ruin held back so as not to hurt his defeated comrade. One of the students doesn't believe that Ruin's attack could have reached them from such a distance. Lodi asks Squat if Ruin needs time to build up energy for such a powerful blow. Squat agrees and offers to close the distance while he prepares the next shot. On the other side of the arena, a girl with elf-like ears watches the opposing team anxiously. She notes that Class E is surprisingly strong, gently stroking the sleeping Layla's hair. Ruin raises his huge sword again, irritated that more of Class E's students survived than he expected. He blames this on the negligence of his comrade Venus, pulling out his weapon with a sharp sound. The greatsword roars with colossal power as he declares that it is now fully charged. Raising it high, he roars that this time he won't miss like last time. But before the blow, Ruin suddenly freezes, his face contorted in surprise. He stares intently at the battlefield, trying to make sense of the strange picture before him. His teammate also notices the enemy's unusual maneuver. The footsteps of the students of Class E thunder across the stone floor in a perfectly synchronized rhythm. The entire team rushes forward, moving in a tight formation along a single line. Ruin guesses that the one walking ahead may want to cover everyone with his artifact. A powerful explosion erupts from his sword, and he shouts that such a stupid defense won't work. But to his complete surprise, the entire line of enemies moves synchronously to the right, perfectly avoiding the blow. Ruin lets out a cry of pure, unadulterated shock, stunned by their impossible maneuver. The students of Class E, without breaking ranks, change direction again with impeccable synchronicity. A girl from Team Ruin disgustedly compares their coordinated movements to the behavior of an insect. Ruin grits his teeth, realizing they are taking advantage of the time he needs to charge his blows. He understands that they are approaching, taking advantage of the gaps between his long-range attacks. With a roar, he releases a new wide slit and shouts to his companion to duck. A wave of energy rips through the arena, miraculously not hitting those who were retreating. The students of Class E land together, avoiding the impact again. Ruin irritably admits that their leaders make lightning-fast and unconventional decisions in evasion. He tells Lemmy that he wants to take out as many enemies as possible before they reach her zone. Lemmy confirms that he will be able to handle all external attacks, but warns that he will not help if the enemy breaks through inside. Ruin nods briefly, his gaze full of focused determination. The students of Class E suddenly spread out, forming a long horizontal line. Ruin shouts a warning to Lemmy as the E-Class fires a coordinated volley at long range. A stream of magical projectiles cuts through the air with a noise, flying straight at Ruin and Lemmy. One of the students from Class A exclaims in surprise as the trajectory of the attack suddenly changes in flight. Ruin looks at Lemmy's smokescreen and asks if she's having problems. Lemmy confidently replies that the attacks were weak, and the shield is not in danger. Trusting her defense, Ruin decides to go on the offensive and rushes to the edge of the field. He mockingly asks what they will do now that they can no longer dodge. His eyes narrow as a figure appears before him with incredible speed. Swords clash with a thud as Lodi intercepts Ruin's attack. Both swordsmen lock in a duel of strength, their blades pressing hard against each other. Ruin feels like he's pushing against a block of stone, barely holding back the pressure. He is shocked at how quickly Lodi has closed the distance between them. Lodi praises Ruin's skill, saying it is worthy of Class A. Then he notices that Ruin's strength doesn't match his speed, and delivers a powerful kick. This blow throws Ruin back, causing him to roll on the ground. His teammate shouts Lodi's name, encouraging him. Ruin stands up again after a tumble, winking playfully and giving a humorous ouch. Ruin, landing after the coup, asks Lodi what he plans to do next. Lodi touches the ground with his sword, preparing for the next step. With a determined smile, he announces his intention. His legs blur as he plummets forward at incredible speed. He exclaims that he will do it, racing past Ruin. Ruin watches its approach, hesitating whether it is a frontal attack. He prepares to strike, shouting to Lodi to go ahead. His face changes to one of shock as he realizes that Lodi is going to attack from behind. Ruin watches in confusion as Lodi runs past him, aiming for Lemmy. Lemmy's eyes widen in surprise as Lodi races straight towards her. She yells at him not to come any closer, but he doesn't stop. Lodi takes to the air, targeting the area next to her shield. He apologizes before kicking down with all his strength. The earth trembles and cracks from a series of his powerful blows. Ruin screams indignantly, realizing that Lodi's real target was Lemmy. Lodi exclaims that she is trying to wake up Big Sister without stopping the strange attack. Ruin rushes to intercept, emphasizing that he is Lodi's true rival. He yells at him to stop, swinging for a strike. His eyes widen as a new figure steps into his path. The blonde from Class E slams her shield in his direction, knocking him off balance. He groans in pain and surprise from this sharp blow. The girl calls on her friends to attack together. Ruin finds himself surrounded, noting their coherence even in chaos. He is amazed at the power of their blows, finding it incredible for the students of Class E. He explodes with a wave of energy, knocking back all attackers. Defeated, Mila apologizes to her comrades, admitting her defeat. She asks Lodi to finish the job before disappearing from the battlefield. Lodi thanks his fallen partner for a job well done. Ruin admits that their maneuvers were incredible for an E-class. Lodi calls out loudly to Ruin, forcing him to focus his attention on himself. Lodi warns Ruin that Big Sister is about to wake up and urges him to act. Ruin notices that Lodi has moved away from Lemmy and vows to save her. He notes that Lemmy is left without cover, and sees this as an opportunity. Ruin roars that he can now attack Lodi without risking hitting Lemmy. He unleashes his final blow, a powerful energy volley aimed at Lodi. A colossal wave of destructive force rushes across the arena. Suddenly, the burst of energy twists and abruptly changes direction in flight. Ruin screams in panic, asking why the attack is now flying towards Lemmy. His own blow crashes into his friend's shield with gigantic force. From the sidelines, Scott explains that this happened because Ruin is no longer in the field. Ruin is breathing heavily, and can't believe his attack was redirected at Lemmy. A powerful volley crashes into her shield with a deafening crack. The audience enthusiastically discusses the incredible power of the Class A student's serious attack. The girl from Lodi's team exclaims that this unexpected turn of events is impossible to understand. Lemmy barely keeps his shield from collapsing, and Lodi declares that Ruin put in too much power. He exclaims that his chance for the decisive blow has come. With a determined expression on his face, Lodi breaks through the now defenseless position, striking with his attack. A close-up shows his confident, triumphant smile as he takes the upper hand. Lemmy dissolves into a glow, whispering an apology to Big Sister before disappearing. Ruin watches in horror, unable to believe that his friend was beaten before his eyes. He realizes that Lodi's kicks were just a ruse to shift Lemmy's field and redirect his attack. Scott smiles smugly, confirming that his friend's cooperation was key to the plan. With a sharp snap of his fingers, he signals the final phase of the strategy. A huge magic circle flares on the ground, enclosing the stunned Ruin. His eyes widen with the realization of the devastating magical power surrounding him. The magic explodes, engulfing him in an inexorable and devastating wave. An explosion rips apart the arena, demonstrating the catastrophic power of Scott's strategy. As the smoke clears, the team worries about the consequences of Layla waking up. A new shockwave shakes the battlefield, signaling Layla's awakening and frightening the students. Layla, who was the target of the plan, lies face down in the rubble, motionless for several seconds. The sudden explosion makes the students flinch, anxiety from the new surge of power appearing on their faces. A huge, ugly shadow begins to rise from the clouds of smoke and debris. Lodi and Scott freeze in shock, eyes wide open, watching the looming danger. A huge horned figure with glowing eyes emerges completely from the darkness, striking terror into everyone. A giant cursed storm spirit roars, but Scott corrects Lodi, saying it's Layla. He explains that Layla's shape-shifting ability preserves her human mind, so there's no need to worry. However, with a hint of uncertainty, he adds that at least that's what his data suggests. The monster that Layla has become speaks up, surprised that the students of Class E were able to defeat her comrades so easily. The students are amazed that she can speak, and Layla indignantly reprimands them for being rude. Sparks of unstable energy begin to flare around her giant body. The squad watches in amazement as the flashes become increasingly intense around the confused monster. Anxiety appears on their faces. They understand that something terrible is happening to Layla. Sparks explode into a fierce thunderstorm, causing the creature to writhe. Layla screams in pain as electrical discharges fly uncontrollably across the arena. Scott recognizes this phenomenon as the immortal cage trying to destroy the dangerous Layla. From the stands, a girl screams in despair, begging to save her big sister. Layla lets out a long, agonizing scream again, and the force of the cage grows ever stronger. A faulty structure destroys the arena's architecture. Its energy spirals out of control. The director and other mentors realize with horror that the situation is critical. With a determined look, Scott declares that this chaos is over. The girl announces that the fight has been suspended due to the breakdown of the immortal cage. She suddenly gasps for air and screams, warning the teachers of the attack. A powerful explosion rips apart the teacher's podium, engulfing it in flames. The stone structure crumbles under the pressure of an unexpected and devastating blow. One of the students covers for the principal, who confirms that he was not injured. The students are stunned, demanding an explanation for the attack and a stop to Layla's madness. The monstrous Layla casts a sly glance at the students, her intentions clearly hostile. The cat-eared girl apologizes, admitting that they should have called off the fight earlier. She explains that when the crystal on Layla's forehead turns red, she cannot be stopped. He adds with concern that it seems to have happened again, leaving Lodi confused. She recalls how it took the elite squad a week to contain Layla last time. Scott grimly concludes that her weapon is an uncontrolled, double-edged blade. The girl explains that the crystal on her forehead is a source of power, and by breaking it, she can be stopped. Ruin is immediately summoned to carry out this dangerous mission and rushes forward. Lemmy, the girl in the wide-brimmed hat, calls out his name anxiously. Ruin crashes into the monster, shouting for it to calm down, but it has no effect. The monstrous Layla responds with a swift and powerful blow of her huge limb. The crystal on her forehead glows ominously, radiating growing power. A powerful gust of wind cuts through the air, aimed straight at Ruin. Lodi, in desperation, shouts to him to beware of the attack. Ruin manages to raise his magic shield, but Lemmy throws it aside. The shield explodes with a terrible roar, the force of the impact breaking through the defense. Ruin, lying on the ground, realizes that Layla has become even stronger than before. Lodi and his classmate watch in horror as Lemmy's sturdy shield is shattered in an instant. Ruin checks on Lemmy, who assures him that she is fine, even though her shield is destroyed. Layla begins to accumulate energy for an even more devastating blow, capable of erasing everything around. While the team panics, Scott calmly declares that if she shoots, they will win. Ruin and the girl with cat ears look at him in complete confusion. Ruin demands an explanation, but Scott calmly jots something down in his notebook. Lodi asks if they will really let her carry out the attack. Scott smiles, admitting that things are going differently, but the plan still works. His comrades declare without a shadow of a doubt that if Scott says so, they will win. Ruin and the cat-eared girl are left speechless, stunned by Class E's blind faith. Scott explains that he will use magic to enhance Lodi's shining dual swords. He tells Lodi that he only has one chance to hit the crystal with all his strength. He instructs Lumia to determine the right moment to strike, and she accepts the task with a salute. Ruin and Lemmy watch, not believing that Class E expects to win. The girl shouts for everyone to back off while Lodi prepares to meet the blow. The students are tensely preparing for the colossal explosion that is about to happen. Lodi's eyes widen in horror and delight as he sees the scale of the approaching attack. With a piercing roar, Layla unleashes a giant beam of pure energy directly at them. Ruin and Lemmy exclaim in panic as they see the destructive wave approaching Lodi. Lodi tenses up forcefully, holding his position as the blow covers him. The girl screams that his weapon cannot withstand such a powerful attack. But instead of destroying, the twin swords begin to absorb a colossal flow of energy. A huge ball of force swirls around him, sucking into the blades. Ruin and Scott realize with surprise that the swords really do absorb the attack. The tension is enormous. Lodi retreats, barely holding back the onslaught. Scott explains that Lumia is strengthening him with her ability, helping him withstand the blow. Lodi grits his teeth, his body shaking from the immense power he is channeling through him. He feels the absorbed energy begin to press down, forcing him to retreat. The ground cracks underfoot from the incredible pressure. He screams, struggling to keep the raging flow of energy under control. At this moment, Mila puts her hand on his shoulder, giving him confidence. She calls out his name with a look full of faith and urges him to fight to the end. Everyone from Class E stands behind him, giving him their support and strength. Lodi's gaze hardens as he looks back at his comrades. He remembers the determined face of Beryl, one of those who believes in him. He sees support in Heliovink's eyes, which strengthens his spirit even more. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he quietly thanks everyone for their unwavering faith in him. Clenching his fists, Lodi swears with all his determination that he will not lose. A colossal ball of enemy energy hovers over the arena. A vortex of power begins to flow towards Lodi's outstretched swords. With a light whistle, the last remnants of energy flow into his blades. The comrades watch as the entire flow of power is absorbed by the weapon. The guy with the glasses exclaims in surprise that Lodi handled the whole blow. His friends, a young man and a girl nearby, are equally shocked. From the stands, other students watch this with complete incomprehension and disbelief. Two classmates scream in delight, not believing what they are seeing. The scarred warrior and the girl in uniform are equally stunned by this feat. The old director watches the impossible scene intently, his face focused and thoughtful. At Scott's urgent command, Lodi rushes forward with a confident, fierce grin. The horned monster roars as its swift attack slams into the ground in front of it. The stone floor cracks from the impact, sending fragments flying to the side. In an impressive leap, Lodi soars onto the beast's giant head. Lightning crackles around his energy-charged swords as he prepares a decisive blow. With the shout of the name of the technique, he exceeds the limits of his capabilities. With a deafening crack, the monster's nearly impenetrable armor finally cracks. The creature flies to pieces, exploding in a catastrophic flurry of rock and dust. After the explosion, clouds of smoke and debris fill the air. The calm curly-haired girl, Sid, sits next to the unconscious Lodi. When he stirs and asks hoarsely if he's dozing off, his comrades immediately rush to him. Sighing with relief, his friend hugs him tightly, barely holding back tears. Scott helps him up, gently scolding him for overexerting himself. The entire squad gathers around, relief and delight mixed on their faces. A triumphant shout is heard. The class celebrates a hard-won victory. Scott looks at his friend and sincerely congratulates him on a job well done. Lodi modestly says that the victory was only possible because everyone stuck with it until the end. A smiling Scott agrees, recognizing the truth in his words about teamwork, but the joyful mood disappears when Lodi looks down with regret. He looks at his twin swords, sadly acknowledging that they are now permanently broken. Friends discuss the possibility of repairs, and he worries about his mother's inevitable wrath. With a sly smile, Scott takes responsibility for the risky plan. Above them, a huge, eerie vortex of dark clouds opens up in the sky. Scott explains that their organization is approaching a final battle with the Eternal Storm. He reveals that they will soon lead the advanced detachment into a decisive assault. A decisive smile appears on Lodi's face. He understands that the time has come. Scott answers him with a quiet but confident look. Behind them, the silhouettes of their comrades emerge, a united front, ready for battle. The main five of the team come forward, declaring that all preparations are complete. At the command of their leader, the squad rushes towards the decisive battle.